Chapter 1975. Actually, compared to Zhang Yunfei, I'm more concerned about whether the big shots of Zhoutian Palace are really watching at this moment. Qin Feiyong transmitted his voice. Fire Lotus and Qin Rushuang looked at each other, their eyes flickering as they looked at the sky. Zhoutian Palace. Inside the palace, there was dead silence at this moment. Everyone looked at Qin Feiyong on the screen, their faces full of shock. However, Feng Yuan and Feng Wenhai's eyes were a little hazy. For perfect stage war gods couldn't even defeat a beginner stage war god. One of them was even killed instantly. Everyone, if it were you, would you be able to do it? A black-haired old man said with a hoarse voice. Everyone shook their heads. I can't do it either. But this kid did it. But how did he do it? The black-haired old man frowned. Could it be that there's a secret hidden in his finger? Someone spoke. I can't see it. At that time, he teleported behind the cripple, and it looked like an ordinary finger. Someone said. As soon as this was said, someone immediately refuted. An ordinary finger can crush the cripple's head? Even his soul was annihilated? Then why don't you tell me what secrets are hidden in his fingers? I don't know. Actually, I noticed that there was a murderous aura on his fingertip. But this murderous aura disappeared in the blink of an eye. I couldn't determine its origin. Murderous aura? Everyone fell into deep thought. Mysterious murderous aura, speed surpassing war gods, and the method to reflect divine power. This kid is definitely not a simple character. Among you, does anyone know him? The black-haired old man glanced at everyone and asked. Everyone shook their heads. Great Elder. Feng Yuan suddenly stood up. Everyone looked at Feng Yuan. Feng Yuan said. Everyone, Great Elder, I know this kid. You know him? Could he be a relative of yours? The black-haired old man was suspicious. Relative? Feng Yuan's face twitched. He shook his head and said, Great Elder, this kid is not a relative of mine. I only know his name. As for his background, I sent people to investigate but found nothing. So mysterious? Everyone looked at each other. What's his name? Asked the black-haired old man. Zhang Haotian. According to my investigation, he entered Heavenly Dragon City a few days ago. Feng Yuan said. Then how do you know him? Someone asked doubtfully. This kid is an extremely arrogant person. A few days ago, he humiliated my grandson in front of everyone in the treasure pavilion, causing me to lose all face. However, this doesn't matter. After all, my grandson's skills are inferior. But what's even more excessive is that he actually slandered our Nine Heavens Palace in the dark. They say that our Nine Heavens Palace is a bully, a scourge of the northern region. Therefore, I would like to implore Grand Elder to severely punish this child as a warning to others. Feng Yuan bowed. Did he really slander you like that? Everyone was seething with anger. Absolutely. Feng Yuan nodded. Great Elder, this matter is indeed very serious. That's right. We should immediately disqualify him from the examination and cut off his head in front of everyone as an example to others. The group was furious as they looked at the black-haired old man. The black-haired old man looked at the image of Qin Feiyong, his eyes flickering. Feng Wenhai glanced at the black-haired old man and transmitted his voice. Lord Father, how come I didn't know that Zhang Haotian had slandered our Nine Heavens Palace? Idiot. This is obviously something I made up. Feng Yuan said. Made up. Feng Wenhai was shocked and transmitted his voice. Lord Father, you're lying to everyone. These people are either in seclusion or in seclusion. They don't know anything about the outside world. Even if I lied to them, they wouldn't know. Feng Yuan sneered. Although that's the case, these people aren't stupid. Especially Grand Elder, he's smart and cautious. He'll definitely send people to investigate. When he finds out that there's no such thing, Lord Father, how are you going to explain it to him? Feng Wenhai said. So, I need you to make arrangements for this matter. Feng Yuan transmitted his voice. How? Feng Wenhai was suspicious. Let someone pretend to be Zhang Haotian's accomplice and go to the major restaurants to spread these rumors. This way, Zhang Haotian won't be able to defend himself. Feng Yuan secretly sneered. Hearing this, Feng Wenhai secretly gave a thumbs up and said, Lord Father is wise. Haha, daring to offend me, Feng Yuan is courting death. Feng Yuan secretly laughed. Feng Wenhai's eyes also had a trace of a smile, then found an excuse and left the hall. We can't wrong a good person, but we can't let a bad person go. This matter still needs to be investigated. After the investigation, we'll make a decision. Not long after Feng Wenhai left, the black-haired old man who had been silent finally spoke. Feng Yuan's eyes flashed and returned to his seat, not saying anything again. At the same time, in a small valley, One-Eyed Dragon, Li Gui, and the little girl all sat on the ground, cold sweat all over their bodies, their faces full of fear. I really didn't expect this Zhang Haoyan to be so powerful. Suddenly, a low voice sounded above the valley. The three of them were stunned and looked up, only to see a purple-clothed youth standing in the void above, holding a folding fan in his hand, looking quite elegant. Zhang Yunfei? Why are you here? The little girl raised her eyebrows. Zhang Yunfei landed in front of the three of them and said, I followed you all the way here. What about big brother Nya? Li Gui asked. Zhang Yunfei said, he's with Zhang Haoyan. What? Isn't he courting death? The little girl and the other two's faces changed. Don't worry. Big brother Nya isn't that easy to deal with. Zhang Yunfei opened his folding fan and slowly fanned it, smiling. That's true. The three of them nodded. The little girl let out a long sigh and said, I thought this mission would be very simple, but I didn't expect it to be so difficult. Li Gui said sinisterly, it's all sure. Zhang Yunfei's expression changed, and hurriedly made a gesture to Li Gui to keep quiet. What? Li Gui frowned. Have you forgotten what Guyong said? During the test, the big shots of Nine Heaven Palace will be secretly watching us? If you say it now, won't it be the same as exposing that we were ordered by Feng Yuan and Feng Wenhai? Zhang Yunfei said. Hearing this, Li Gui looked at the sky in horror and said, I really forgot about this, but I'm not wrong. It's all Guyong, Feng Yuan, and Feng Wenhai's fault. Indeed. They should have told us Zhang Haoyan's true strength. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been so careless. Even a cripple won't die. The one-eyed man thought. The most important thing is that the soul stones they gave were far less than Zhang Haoyan's value. With Zhang Haoyan's strength, he should have given us at least 100,000 soul stones each. But they only gave us 50,000. The little girl said angrily. Maybe Feng Yuan and the others don't know Zhang Haoyan's true strength. However, since we've already accepted this mission, we have to continue. Otherwise, not to mention Zhang Haoyan, even Feng Yuan won't let us go. You all know the forces in Feng Yuan's hands. If we're targeted by him, even Nye Yun, the son of the Star River City Lord, won't be able to escape. Zhang Yunfei said secretly. We know this. But this Zhang Haoyan's methods are so terrifying, how should we deal with him? Li Gui asked secretly. Don't worry. Big brother Nye has his own way. Let's just follow them and see what happens. Zhang Yunfei smiled secretly. We can only rely on big brother Nye now. Let's go. If we delay any longer, we won't be able to catch up with them. The little girl sighed secretly. Roar. Boom. At this time, the Sky Dragon mountain range was filled with killing intent. Battles could be seen everywhere. Qin Feiyang and the others were unimpeded. Because of Nye Yun. After all, they were still at the edge and it was difficult to encounter a Lord God-level beast. Therefore, with Nye Yun's strength, he could kill any beast in an instant. In Nye Yun's opinion, the more effort he put in, the more Qin Feiyang and the others would trust him. Only then could he find a chance to kill with one strike. On the surface, Qin Feiyang treated him wholeheartedly, but he never let him get close to Fire Lotus and Qin Rushuang. Qin Rushuang glanced at Nye Yun and said secretly, Feiyang, when you killed the cripple, did you use the kill symbol art? Yes. Qin Feiyang replied. As expected. Like I said, how could you possibly be able to shatter his head with merely the power of a finger? Qin Rushuang smiled. I couldn't do anything. It's impossible to kill a perfect realm god of war with other divine arts. However, I did it secretly. Even if the big shots of the Ninth Heaven Palace were watching, they probably wouldn't have noticed. Qin Feiyang transmitted his voice. If they were really watching us, even if they didn't notice the kill symbol art, it would have attracted their attention. After all, a beginner realm god of war killing a perfect realm god of war in an instant is an unbelievable thing. From now on we have to be more cautious. Qin Rushuang reminded. I know. Oh right. Before Cripple and the others ambushed us you said something. You said you were very concerned about something. What is it? Qin Feiyong asked secretly. Qin Rushuang became silent. Seeing this, Qin Feiyong was even more confused. Sigh. Qin Rushuang sighed secretly and transmitted her voice. I'm concerned about the power of the bloodline. The power of the bloodline? Qin Feiyong was stunned. That's right. You, a descendant of several generations, have already undergone atavism. However, I, his biological daughter, have not shown any signs of atavism. I can't help but wonder if I'm really his flesh and blood. Qin Rushuang said helplessly. So it's about this. Qin Feiyong suddenly understood and secretly said proudly, this kind of thing depends on talent and opportunity. It can't be forced. Don't be so smug. Qin Rushuang glared at Qin Feiyong angrily. Qin Feiyong smiled. Actually, this kind of thing really can't be forced. For example, his great-grandfather Emperor Hong, as the biological son of the ancestor, didn't his bloodline power also not undergo atavism? So, it's better to let nature take its course. Otherwise, it will only add to his troubles if he continues to be entangled. The closer they got, the clearer the sounds of battle became. Wait! It seems like humans and dire beasts are fighting. Nieyun suddenly braked and stopped. He looked in the direction of the battle and said in a deep voice. It does seem like a human's aura. Qin Rushuang whispered. There really is someone walking in front of us. Who is it? Why is he so powerful? Fire Lotus frowned. Why don't we go and take a look? If it's a difficult character, we have to get rid of him as soon as possible. Otherwise, I'm afraid the first place will fall into his hands. Nieyun suggested. That won't do. Qin Rushuang immediately said. Qin Feiyong glanced at Nieyun and his eyes flashed. This person was really looking for opportunities at any time. On the surface, Nieyun was fighting for the first place, but in fact he was creating opportunities. Because once a battle broke out, Nieyun would have the opportunity to plot against them behind their backs. How could they let him succeed with such petty tricks? It's better not to go. After all, this is already deep in the Sky Dragon Mountain range. If it's a monarch god-level dire beast, then we will be courting death if we go there. Qin Feiyong said calmly. Nieyun was quite annoyed, but he nodded and smiled. Brother Zhang's consideration is reasonable. No, we should go and take a look. Hui shook his head. Why? Qin Feiyong turned his head and looked at Hui suspiciously. Hui said, if the direction is correct, then the place of battle should be the Black Dragon Lake. Black Dragon Lake? Qin Feiyong raised his head in bewilderment. Although he and Fire Lotus had been to the Black Dragon Lake before, they had used the altar to teleport there, so they did not know the exact location. What kind of place is the Black Dragon Lake? Nieyun looked at Hui in confusion. Hui smiled. This Black Dragon Lake is not simple. There is a half-step monarch god-level black dragon lurking in it. As he spoke, he glanced at Qin Feiyong with a meaningful look. Black dragon. Nieyun was shocked. Let's go and take a look. Qin Feiyong suddenly waved his hand and swept up Fire Lotus and Qin Rushuang, flying in that direction. Nieyun and Hui saw this and quickly followed. Nieyun smiled. Brother Hui, you even know a place like the Black Dragon Lake. It seems like you know the situation of the Sky Dragon Mountain range very well. I've been here before. Hui smiled. Been here before? Nieyun's eyes went wide, and he said in surprise, Brother Hui, are you sure? Hui nodded. I thought that you found someone to inquire about it, but I didn't expect you to come here personally. You're amazing. Nieyun's face was full of admiration. You flatter me. Hui said with a faint smile. Nieyun turned his head to look at Qin Feiyong's back, and there was a trace of seriousness in the depths of his eyes. Originally, he thought that among this group of people, only Qin Feiyong was difficult to deal with, because Fire Lotus and the other two had not displayed their outstanding strength all day. However, he did not expect. This Hui had actually come to the Sky Dragon Mountain range, and he even came to the depths. It seemed that this person was not as simple as he looked on the surface. The distance was getting closer and closer. The battle fluctuations could also be clearly sensed. Dragon might. Nie Yun's gaze trembled. There was an extremely pure dragon might in this battle fluctuation. Hui said, Brother Jiang, it seems that someone is fighting with the black dragon. However, Qin Feiyong did not seem to hear it, as he stared in the direction of the black dragon lake, his gaze as gloomy as water. Qin Rushuang's face was also extremely ugly. However, Nie Yun and Hui behind the two did not notice. But Fire Lotus at the side sensed something, and transmitted her voice, Qin Dage, Sister Rushuang, what are you guys doing? What a familiar aura. Qin Rushuang secretly transmitted her voice, her eyes full of disgust. That's right. It's him. Qin Feiyong said in a deep voice. Who? Fire Lotus was bewildered. What kind of person could make Qin Feiyong and Qin Rushuang so resentful? Mu Tianyang. Qin Feiyong said word by word, and transmitted his voice. What? It's actually him. Fire Lotus was shocked. Qin Feiyong secretly said. Now I'm finally sure that he was the one who saved Guosweki. Humph. He's still going against us. It seems that the lesson we taught him back then was not enough. Qin Rushuang snorted coldly. Clang. Just as Qin Rushuang's voice fell, a deafening metallic sound came from the direction of the Black Dragon Lake. Following it was a monstrous evil aura. This is Bloodblade's aura. Qin Rushuang's gaze trembled. Not good. He must be trying to snatch Black Dragon's divine soul. Qin Feiyong secretly shouted coldly, and without hesitation, he used the attainment formula. His speed directly soared several times, and in the blink of an eye, he disappeared from Hui and Nie Yun's sight. Nie Yun was dumbfounded. Hui also had a bitter smile. This person was really terrifying when he went crazy. Above the Black Dragon Lake. At this moment, a young man in purple clothes and a purple crown stood against the wind. Above his head, a blood-red dagger was suspended. If it was not Mu Tianyang and Bloodblade, who else could it be? Opposite, Black Dragon looked at Bloodblade, his huge body trembling, and his huge eyes were filled with fear. On the other side, a man and a woman were standing together. It was Guosweki and Mu Qing. Guosweki looked at Mu Tianyang and Bloodblade, and was also shocked. But Mu Qing's expression did not change at all, and there was a strange light in his eyes. Suddenly, the corner of his mouth raised slightly, looked at Mu Tianyang, and said with a smile, He's almost here. Is that so? Mu Tianyang chuckled, looked at Black Dragon and said, I've played with you for so long, it's time to send you on your way. Black Dragon turned and fled. Whoosh! But Bloodblade instantly arrived behind Black Dragon, and directly cut Black Dragon's body in half. Dragon blood poured down like a waterfall, dyeing the sky red. Half-step divine lords are just ants. Mu Tianyang smiled contemptuously, put away Bloodblade, and then waved his hand, and Black Dragon's body suddenly disappeared. Mu Tianyang. It was also at this moment. A murderous roar could be heard. Mu Tianyang looked up, and a smile appeared on his face. Mu Qing also flew to Mu Tianyang's side with Guosweki, and then looked up. Mu Qing's eyes were full of playfulness. However, Guosweki's eyes contained a trace of hatred that could not be dissolved. Swoosh! Very soon, three figures landed in the void opposite Mu Tianyang. It was Qin Feiyong and the other two. Qin Feiyong looked at the dragon blood all over the ground, and his eyes suddenly darkened. Mu Tianyang looked at Qin Feiyong and Qin Rushuang, and secretly laughed. I didn't expect that we would meet in such a way. Telepathic message? Qin Feiyong and Qin Rushuang were stunned. It seemed that Mu Tianyang also knew that the big shots of Nine Heavens Palace were secretly watching at this time. Where's Black Dragon? Qin Feiyong secretly asked. I've already killed him. Mu Tianyang secretly laughed. You, Qin Feiyong's eyes were full of anger. I just stole your prey. Yet, you killed my younger brother and the woman I loved the most. So the person who should be angry is me. Mu Tianyang secretly said. I'm very sorry about Shun Mei's death. But Heavenly Lord Mu deserves to die. Not only does Heavenly Lord Mu deserve to die, but you also deserve to die. Qin Feiyong said. Yes, I do deserve to die. But the heavens don't accept me. Mu Tianyang laughed. Mu Tianyang, aren't you ashamed to say this? If it weren't for Qin Yuan's help, would you have survived? Qin Rushuang was secretly angry. Yes, I'm very grateful to Qin Yuan. It's also because of this that I didn't disclose your identities, Mu Tianyang secretly said. Mu Tianyang said telepathically, wait, can't you and the inner demons communicate telepathically? That's right. But I can't sense his existence, Qin Feiyang said. Then it seems like Dong Zhunyang's Eye of Destiny isn't very accurate. Although I'm very happy that the inner demons are dead, I still want to comfort you. My condolences. Let's have some fun in the 9th Heaven Palace in the future. After Mu Tianyang finished speaking, he turned around and left with a face full of schadenfreude. Let's go too. Mu Qing looked at Guosweki and said. Then she left without looking back. Guosweki looked at Qin Feiyang and said telepathically, let me ask you, were you the one who saved Gao Xiaowei and helped Gao Xiaolong destroy my Guo family? Qin Feiyang said, didn't Mu Tianyang and the others tell you? Guosweki said angrily, I want you to answer me personally. It was me. Qin Feiyang nodded. If you don't want to marry me, you can say it directly. I won't stop you. I can even destroy the marriage contract in front of you. But why are you so ruthless? Guosweki's eyes trembled and tears flowed down her face. Qin Feiyang was about to say something. There's no need to say anything. I'll make you and Gao Xiaolong pay for this blood debt sooner or later. Guosweki smiled coldly and turned to chase after Mu Tianyang and Huiyu. Only tell her that you helped Gao Xiaolong destroy the Guo family. But don't tell her that the marriage contract was forged by Guo Zixiong. This Mu Tianyang is really despicable, Fire Lotus said with disgust. This is his usual style. He used Guosweki's hatred for me to make Guosweki a sharp blade in his hand. I want to see what tricks he can play. Qin Feiyang snorted. Whoosh! At this moment, Nieyun and Huiyi finally arrived. Looking at the dragon blood below, the two exchanged a glance and then looked at Qin Feiyang. Brother Jiang, where's the black dragon? It's already been killed. Let's set off quickly, otherwise the first place will really be snatched away. Qin Feiyang said solemnly. The half-step divine monarch black dragon was actually killed by someone? Nieyun was shocked and asked, who is it? So terrifying? I don't know. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Huiyi looked at Qin Feiyang meaningfully and cupped his fists. Brother Nia, I'll have to trouble you to continue opening the way. My pleasure. Nieyun smiled. Qin Feiyang added, don't take another detour. No detours? Nieyun was stunned. Go straight ahead. Qin Feiyang looked in the direction Mu Tianyang and the other two disappeared, his eyes shining. Behind, 3 men and 1 woman were moving as fast as lightning. It was Zhang Yunfei and the other 3 who had been tailing behind. At this moment, they were all sweating profusely and panting like oxen. What is Brother Nye doing? Why did he suddenly run so fast? At this rate, even if we catch up with them, we will be exhausted to death. Zhang Yunfei complained. Could it be that something happened? The fierce ghost frowned. Hearing this, Zhang Yunfei, one-eyed dragon, and the girl's heart sank. How is that possible? Brother Nye's strength is stronger than us. And he even has a pinnacle divine artifact. Even if he encounters any danger, he will definitely be fine. The girl suddenly laughed. True. Zhang Yunfei and the other 2 nodded. The girl transmitted her voice again. It's just that those people bought by Feng Yuan are probably useless. Those people are originally trash. The fierce ghost laughed. That's right. With their speed, I'm afraid they are still wandering in the periphery. And even if they can catch up with us, they can't help much. However, although these people are useless, those beasts bought by Feng Yuan can play a big role. One-eyed dragon secretly sneered. Yes. With these beasts, Jiang Haotian and his group, no matter how capable they are, they won't be able to escape death. And I think they are about to take action. The fierce ghost grinned. Haha. There are a few good young people in this year's assessment. 9 Heaven Palace. In the main hall, the black-haired old man looked at 2 of the images and laughed happily. These 2 images were of Qin Feiyang, Mu Tianyang, and the others. Yes. One has the strength to kill a perfect war god. The other has the means to kill a half-step monarch god. These 2 already have the ability to shake the earth board. I estimate that once they enter 9 Heaven Palace, there will be changes to the earth board. The rest of the people were also full of smiles. Everyone, don't be happy too early, Feng Yuan suddenly said. Someone asked, with these two monstrous talents, Hall Master Feng Yuan, aren't you happy? Happy? Of course I'm happy. But don't you find it strange that the purple-clothed youth's divine weapon is a bit too powerful? Feng Yuan frowned. That's true. That bloody blade didn't even awaken and it killed Hei Long. If it awakens, won't it be even more terrifying? For an unknown person to possess such a terrifying divine item, it's truly inconceivable. Some people began to discuss softly. Hall Master Feng Yuan, you are in charge of the resource hall, so you are more familiar with divine weapons than us. Do you know the origin of that bloody blade? Someone asked. To be honest, I've never heard of it. And because it hasn't awakened, I can't determine the grade of that bloody blade. But from the way it killed Hei Long, I guess that this bloody blade has surpassed the pinnacle divine weapon level. Feng Yuan analyzed. Beyond the pinnacle divine weapon. Then it's a legendary divine weapon? The black-haired old man said. Feng Yuan nodded. It's most likely a legendary divine weapon. Then we'll have to investigate this person's identity. After all, even our Nine Heavens Palace doesn't have many legendary divine weapons. The black-haired old man said. Shua. Suddenly, a black-clothed man appeared in the hall and knelt on one knee before the black-haired old man. Greetings, First Elder. Seeing this black-clothed man appear, Feng Yuan's eyes flashed. How is it? The black-haired old man looked at the black-clothed man and asked. According to this subordinate's investigation, there are indeed several accomplices of Zhang Haotian slandering our Nine Heavens Palace in some restaurants. The black-clothed man said. Preposterous. Even if this person is a genius, we can't tolerate him. That's right. First Elder, I suggest we kill him immediately. Angry shouts rang out in the main hall. Zhang Haotian, do you see this? This is the result of going against me. Who do you think I am? You dare to offend me? I have 10,000 ways to kill you. Feng Yuan laughed inwardly. The black-haired old man raised his head and looked at Qin Feiyong on the screen and frowned. First Elder, there's nothing to hesitate about. Our northern region doesn't lack talents. Please give the order. The group urged. The black-haired old man didn't say anything. He looked down at the black-clothed man and asked, Are you sure? This subordinate is sure. The black-clothed man nodded. The black-haired old man pondered for a while and said with a hoarse laugh, This matter isn't urgent. Let's wait and see. Feng Yuan was stunned. What did he mean? Wait and see? Wait and see what? What was there to see? The others also looked at the black-haired old man with a puzzled expression. The black-haired old man smiled and said indifferently, He's just an early-stage war god. There's no need to be so concerned. Let's wait until the end of the examination. All right. Since the First Elder had spoken, the others could only accept helplessly. Little bastard, I'll let you live for one more day. Feng Yuan looked at Qin Feiyong, and his eyes were suffused with a wisp of shocking viciousness. Chapter 1978. Time flew by. The next morning, half of the assessment time had passed. Qin Feiyong's group of 5 rushed without stopping, and they were not far from the hinterland. However, Mu Tianyang's group was still in front of them. To be exact, they had been following behind Mu Tianyang's group. Qin Rushuang frowned and sent a sound transmission. Feiyong, why don't you use the Qixing formula to surpass them and keep following behind them? If this continues, they will definitely be first place. Do you really want to get first place that much? Qin Feiyong laughed secretly. Nonsense. 100,000 soul stones is enough for all of us to break through to the level of war god. Who doesn't want it? Qin Rushuang said angrily. Everyone. Qin Feiyong was surprised. Yes. During this period of time, we have been in seclusion in the castle and calculated carefully. From the pseudo-god to the level of war god, 1,000 soul stones are needed. But from the level of war god to the level of war god, one needs 10,000 soul stones. Qin Rushuang secretly said. 10,000. Qin Feiyong was shocked. Could it be that no one had broken through during this period of time? It turned out that it required so many soul stones. First, he swindled 10,000 soul stones from the blood python. Then, He looted the Gua family's treasure vault and obtained another 3,000 to 4,000 soul stones. Finally, he killed the 2 black-clothed men sent by Gu Yong and obtained another 1,000 soul stones. From Qin Feiyang's point of view, this was already a large sum. However, he didn't expect that it was just a drop in the bucket. But what was worth celebrating was that he had obtained more than 50,000 soul stones from killing Cripple. Thinking of this, Qin Feiyang glanced at Nie Yun. As the son of the Star River City Lord, he should have more soul stones than Cripple. Qin Feiyang suddenly said, "Brother Nie, Brother Hua, can I ask you a question?" "What question?" The two of them were stunned and looked at him suspiciously. Qin Feiyang asked, "How many soul stones do you need to break through from the pseudo-god to the monarch god?" The two of them were stunned. "What is it?" Qin Feiyang was puzzled. Nie Yun replied, "As long as one has broken through to the semi-divinity realm, they should know something like that. To tell you the truth, in the past we've been following Master and living in seclusion in the mountains. Thus we don't know much about these matters." Qin Feiyang smiled. Fire Lotus and Qin Rushuang nodded as well. Nie Yun said in surprise, "Then you guys can be considered as hidden experts. Sorry for the disrespect. To put it nicely, he's a hidden expert. To put it bluntly, he's a country bumpkin who hasn't seen the world." Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled bitterly. "You can't say that." Accompanied by a ferocious roar, more than a dozen beasts took the lead, collapsing one giant peak after another, pouncing towards Qin Feiyang's group. These dozen beasts were all half-step monarch god. Nie Yun's body trembled and he roared, "Brother Jiang, Brother Hua, quickly run!" A cold light flashed across Qin Feiyang's eyes. With a flick of his sleeves, he swept up the 4 of them and executed the walk character art and teleportation, tearing through the air like lightning. What fast speed! However, don't think about escaping. Under the lead of those half-step monarch god beasts, the beast tides on both sides chased after Qin Feiyang's group crazily. Ahead, Mu Tianyang trio stood in the void, looking at the beast tides on both sides with a look of surprise. Why would a beast tide appear out of nowhere? "Brother Mu, long time no see." Suddenly, a hearty laugh came. Mu Tianyang was taken aback. He turned his head to look and saw Qin Feiyang rushing over. Not only was he smiling, but his face was also full of enthusiasm. "What do you mean?" Mu Tianyang frowned. In just a few blinks of an eye, Qin Feiyang rushed in front of Mu Tianyang and immediately gave Mu Tianyang a bear hug. With tears in his eyes, he smiled and said, "Good brother, we finally meet again." "Good brother?" Mu Tianyang was stunned. Mu Qing, Guasweki, Fire Lotus, Qin Rushuang, Nie Yun, and Hui also looked at the two with a dumbfounded expression. "Wait, what are you doing? Who's your brother?" Mu Tianyang came back to his senses and hurriedly pushed Qin Feiyang away, shouting with disgust in his eyes, "Brother, although we haven't seen each other for a long time, you can't be so heartless and not recognize me as your brother. I remember when we were young we even wore underwear together. If there was a candy you had to share it with me." Qin Feiyang said. Stop. Mu Tianyang hurriedly waved his hand. "Humans, let's see where you can run to. Little ones, kill them for me." Accompanied by a series of roars, the beast tide caught up with a fierce glint in their eyes. Not good. As soon as he saw the beast tide, Mu Tianyang had a premonition of uneasiness. "Ancestor, we seem to have been tricked," Mu Qing said with a frown as she looked at the aggressive beast tide. "Tricked?" Mu Tianyang stared blankly and immediately understood. Qin Feiyang deliberately got close to him, and then used him to deal with the beast tide. "Bastard, you win. Run!" Immediately, Mu Tianyang glared at Qin Feiyang angrily, then shouted at Mu Qing and Hui, turned around and began to flee. "Brother, wait for me." Qin Feiyang smiled and quickly caught up with Mu Tianyang with Fire Lotus and the other 3. "Don't let any of them go chase." Those beasts roared ferociously. Literature Museum. Chapter 1979. Fire Lotus glanced at Mu Tianyang, and then looked at the beast horde behind them. She suddenly smiled and said, "I finally understand. So you followed Mu Tianyang for this." Of course. She was transmitting her voice. "What else do you think? This Mu Tianyang first saved Guasweki, then killed the black dragon. He has to do something. Qin Feiyong secretly laughed. So many ideas. Qin Rushuang looked at Qin Feiyong with disdain, but her eyes were full of smiles. However, feeling the terrifying power behind them, Mu Tianyang and Mu Qing's faces sank. Mu Qing kept transmitting his voice. Qin Feiyong, you're despicable. Despicable? As soon as I arrived at Sky Dragon City, you started to scheme against me. Who is more despicable? Qin Feiyong secretly said. Don't be complacent. I won't let you succeed. Mu Qing coldly snorted, turned to look at the beasts and said, Everyone, we have nothing to do with this Zhang Haotian. If you want to kill him, kill him. Don't chase us. Do you think we're blind? Just now, he clearly called you good brothers and hugged that human with tears streaming down his face. The beasts in the lead sneered. This is his trick. He wants to drag us down with him, Mu Qing said angrily, but what he got in return was the group of beasts' sneers. Don't say any more. They won't believe it at all. Even if they believe it, they won't let us go. Mu Tianyang said in a deep voice, Qin Feiyong, you bastard, I'll fight with you. Mu Qing was furious. He secretly shouted and was ready to pounce on Qin Feiyong. In fact, he had long noticed that Qin Feiyong had been following them. He had also carefully considered the reason why Qin Feiyong had followed them. Originally, he had thought that Qin Feiyong was looking for an opportunity to seize the Black Dragon's divine soul. But who would have thought that he would have such a plan? You? Qin Feiyong's face was full of disdain. Stop! Mu Tianyang also frowned and shouted. Ancestor! Mu Qing said angrily in her mind. Don't you know Qin Feiyong's methods? Not to mention you, even I don't have the confidence. Mu Tianyang secretly glared at Mu Qing and transmitted his voice. Qin Feiyong, how did you provoke these ferocious beasts? I didn't provoke them. Qin Feiyong shook his head. If you didn't provoke them, would they chase after you? Mu Tianyang said angrily. Maybe she thinks I'm handsome. Qin Feiyong touched his chin and said with a smile. To hell with it. Mu Tianyang was so angry that his nose was crooked. Qin Feiyong chuckled and looked at Mu Tianyang and Mu Qing. He said in surprise, Your cultivation has improved too quickly. Mu Tianyang was actually a perfect war god now. And Mu Qing had also stepped into the initial stage of war god. These two seemed to have only come to the ancient world half a year earlier than him, and at that time, Mu Tianyang's cultivation was only at the initial stage of war god. In half a year, he had broken through 2 small realms in a row? I'm not as merciful as you. In the past half a year, in order to increase my strength and obtain soul stones, I've slaughtered many wealthy families. Mu Tianyang secretly snorted. Qin Feiyong raised his eyebrows and said in disgust, You really haven't changed at all. Change? Why should I change? This world has always been so cruel. If you don't kill me, I'll kill you. Mu Tianyang sneered. Qin Feiyong glanced at him, rolled his eyes, and gave Mu Tianyang a bear hug affectionately. He said gratefully, Good brother, you're really loyal. You're actually helping us delay them. Thank you. We'll leave first. His voice was especially loud. After saying that, he let go of Mu Tianyang and led Fire Lotus and the others to use the Xing formula again. In an instant, they left Mu Tianyang and the other 2 behind. Bastard, bastard. Mu Qing was so angry that she stomped her feet. Qin Feiyong's words were obviously said deliberately for the beasts behind them to hear. What? How dare you threaten to delay us? Human, you're really courting death. Those half-step divine lord ferocious beasts were immediately enraged and charged towards Mu Tianyang crazily. Although Mu Tianyang had a heaven-defying divine artifact in hand, his speed was not as fast as Qin Feiyong. He was chased by those ferocious beasts very soon. Mu Qing turned his head to stare at those ferocious beasts and roared angrily. I already said that we have nothing to do with them. Why are you guys so relentless? In the face of danger, you don't even acknowledge your brother. You're really useless, human. The group of ferocious beasts had looks of disdain. This temper of mine. Mu Qing gnashed his teeth and flew into a rage. It was fine if they did not believe him, but they even mocked him instead. This was intolerable. A loud and clear voice suddenly rang out from behind the beast horde. Quickly finish them off. Hearing this, the beast-tide immediately bared its fangs and pounced towards the three of them. Mu Tianyang glanced at the back of the beast-tide, killing intent surging in his eyes. Gwasweki frowned and said, "Young Master Mu, you can't make a move. Otherwise, it'll benefit Jiang Haotian." "Then you tell me what I should do?" Mu Tianyang said angrily. If one could enter the spatial divine object or be able to activate the legendary altar, then they could still avoid these ferocious beasts. But the test's rules did not allow it. Gwasweki fell silent, fear towards Qin Feiyang and Mu Tianyang involuntarily welling up in her heart. Firstly, it was Mu Tianyang scheming against Qin Feiyang. And now it was Qin Feiyang scheming against Mu Tianyang again. These two people's means were all too terrifying. A moment of carelessness and they would fall into eternal damnation. Mu Tianyang roared, "Retreat!" Mu Qing and Gwasweki shuddered and immediately retreated explosively. "You guys found the wrong person. I, Mu Tianyang, am not someone that you mere ants can offend." Mu Tianyang swept his gaze over those ferocious beasts pouncing over. His eyes suffused with a shocking light. Accompanied by a clanging sound, the blood blade appeared. Mu Tianyang grabbed the blood blade and charged straight into the beast-tide. That ostentatious posture, that terrifying aura, was simply unstoppable. Even half-step divine lord ferocious beasts could only be slaughtered in front of the blood blade. Gwasweki looked at the blood blade in horror and muttered, "Mu Qing, just what level of divine weapon is that? Don't worry about that. You just need to know that with this blood blade, no one can threaten us," Mu Qing said proudly. But just as he finished speaking, Qin Feiyang's figure involuntarily appeared in his mind. The arrogance on his face also immediately dissipated, replaced by a look of displeasure. In the distance, on top of a mountain, Qin Feiyang and his group stood side by side. "Amazing, amazing." Nie Yun and Hui looked at Mu Tianyang and were also dumbfounded. They never thought that the northern region would have such a terrifying person. Hui asked, "Brother Jiang, do you really know him? If I don't know him, why would I use him to deal with those ferocious beasts?" Qin Feiyang said with a faint smile, "He's really not simple." Nie Yun shook his head. On the surface, he was paying attention to Mu Tianyang, but in fact, he was glancing at Qin Feiyang's group of four. "But I'm curious, why would a beast-tide suddenly appear?" Qin Feiyang frowned, turned his head to look at Nie Yun, and asked, "Brother Nie, do you know?" "Me?" Nie Yun was taken aback and said helplessly, "How would I know? Moreover, it's normal for a beast-tide to appear in this heavenly dragon mountain range. After all, this is the base camp of the ferocious beasts." "That's true." Qin Feiyang nodded and looked at Mu Tianyang again. Nie Yun secretly breathed a sigh of relief, then glanced at Qin Feiyang's group of four. Seeing that all four of them were paying attention to the battlefield, a cold light flashed in his eyes. Suddenly, he took a step back and raised his hands at lightning speed. Divine power gushed out from his palms and slapped towards Qin Feiyang and Hui's heads. He thought that Qin Feiyang's group of four were unprepared. He thought that he would definitely succeed. But he didn't see that the moment he stepped back, the corner of Qin Feiyang's mouth immediately raised. Following that, he rolled up Hui Fire Lotus and Qin Rushuang, and disappeared from Nie Yun's sight in a flash. Nie Yun's hands missed, and his face suddenly stiffened. Surprised? A mocking voice came from behind him. Nie Yun's heart trembled, and he quickly turned around, only to see Qin Feiyang's group of four standing opposite him, their eyes full of ridicule. Only Hui was frowning, because he still didn't know that Nie Yun was also a pawn bribed by Feng Yuan. Nie Yun stared at Qin Feiyang, and said in a deep voice, "When did you find out?" Qin Feiyang smiled and said, "When I first saw you." "Impossible. I didn't reveal any flaws at all," Nie Yun said. "Didn't reveal any flaws?" Qin Feiyang smiled and said, "That's just what you think is infallible." Nie Yun's heart trembled. "Remember when I killed Cripple and the others? At that time, One-Eyed Man and the fierce ghost Sea of Qi were destroyed by me. If it was anyone else, they would definitely kill them first, but the person you killed first was the girl. Why is that? Because you shot that arrow not really to kill the girl but to kill me. At the same time, it was also to create an opportunity for the three of them to escape. Am I right?" Qin Feiyang smiled and said, "This matter must be said that he discovered it himself, Otherwise it would implicate Gong Zifeng. Because Gong Zifeng was not an idiot. If he said now that he knew Nie Yun's purpose, Gong Zifeng would definitely think that someone had tipped him off. And with Gong Zifeng's ability and connections, it would be easy to find out who had tipped him off. After all, not many people knew about this plan. Nie Yun was extremely shocked when he heard Qin Feiyang's words. Later, after seeing my strength, you felt that it was too dangerous to confront me directly, so you thought of a plan. You traveled with us, approached us, and slowly looked for an opportunity. And along the way you worked hard to open the way in front so that we could completely trust you. But you didn't know that what you thought was flawless was actually full of loopholes. Because on the way, I noticed several times that you wanted to sneak attack us from behind. But every time I was able to easily resolve it. And those seemingly inadvertent actions were also deliberately shown by me. Because you still have value, we still need you to open the way for us, so I don't want to get rid of you so early. Let's put it this way. If you hadn't made a move just now, I would still pretend that I didn't know and let you do whatever you want. Qin Feiyang smiled again. Chapter 1980. Nie Yun looked at Qin Feiyang in a daze. Initially, he thought that Qin Feiyang was a simple-minded person when he suggested that they travel together, and Qin Feiyang agreed without hesitation. However, he did not expect that it was all an act. Instead, he was the one who was fooled. Haha, amazing, amazing. I truly did not expect you to be such a difficult person to deal with. All of a sudden, Nie Yun laughed loudly. His expression was calm, and there was no trace of fear or dread. Thank you for the compliment. However, I'm puzzled. I have no grievances with you in the past. Why are you plotting against me? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. By asking this question, Feng Yuan could completely dispel the idea of someone leaking information to him. I can't stand how arrogant and despotic you were in the treasure pavilion. Is that reason enough? Nie Yun said with a smile. Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded and smiled. Now, do you want me to do it, or do you want to end your own life? Since Nie Yun did not want to tell the truth, there was no need to continue asking. In my own life? Nie Yun was stunned for a moment before bursting into laughter again. Zhang Haoyan, you can't possibly think that I'm as easy to deal with as Cripple and the others, right? Continue. Qin Feiyang crossed his arms and smiled. Clang! Nie Yun waved his hand and the golden bow appeared. Divine light shone in all directions as he looked at Qin Feiyang arrogantly. Do you know what grade this is? Just tell me and see if you can scare me. Qin Feiyang smiled. You're indeed a newborn calf that isn't afraid of tigers. Listen up, this bow is called the Sun Extinguishing Divine Bow. It's a pinnacle-grade divine weapon. Nie Yun said proudly. Pinnacle-grade divine weapon? Qin Feiyang was stunned. He turned to look at Fire Lotus and Qin Rushuang and asked suspiciously, is a pinnacle-grade divine weapon strong? Can it compare to Mu Qianyang's blood blade? When Fire Lotus and Qin Rushuang heard that, they immediately burst into laughter. This guy really had a talent for playing dumb. Fortunately, they knew Qin Feiyang. Otherwise, they would have been fooled by Qin Feiyang's current appearance. Cough cough. Brother, this pinnacle-grade divine weapon is beyond supreme grade. It's very strong. Huilian coughed dryly and began to explain seriously. I see. Qin Feiyang nodded in realization and turned to look at the Sun Destroyer divine bow in shock. Seeing Qin Feiyang's ignorance, Nie Yun was really pleased. However, Qin Feiyang suddenly bared his teeth and laughed mischievously. I want this divine bow. What? Nie Yun was with him. He wanted the Sun Extinguishing Divine Bow? Was he dreaming? Was? Whoosh. However, when he came back, he was that. Immediately, his eyelids twitched. Divine power rolled out. While reviving the Sun Destroyer bow, he teleported away. Qin Rushuang said happily. Fire Lotus said in surprise, doesn't that mean we have become rich overnight? There is nothing wrong with that. Qin Rushuang laughed and threw the Qian Kuan ring to Qin Feiyang. She said meaningfully, aren't there a few more? We can't let them go so easily. Qin Feiyang was stunned. He raised his head and looked at Qin Rushuang. He smiled and said, indeed we can't let them go. Hui glanced at the three of them and snorted with dissatisfaction. Brother Jiang, you are so dishonest. Qin Feiyong couldn't help but laugh. He put the Qian Kuan ring into his chest pocket, but in fact he had sent it to the ancient castle. He then turned around and looked at Mu Tianyang again. Qin Rushuang said, "I think those people have been following us. Now they should be behind the beast tide." "I know." Qin Feiyong nodded and looked away from Mu Tianyang to Mu Qing. "Why are you looking at them?" Qin Rushuang was suspicious. "Don't you think this is a good opportunity?" Qin Feiyong whispered. "What opportunity?" Qin Rushuang was puzzled. Now that Mu Tianyang is surrounded by the beast tide, he can't take care of Mu Qing. And because of the rules of the assessment, Mu Qing can't enter the space divine item either. So now is the best time to deal with him. Qin Feiyong's eyes flashed coldly. He activated the concealment technique and the four of them disappeared immediately. At the same time, Mu Qing and Guosweki stood in the void watching Mu Tianyang. However, if one looked closely, one would find that there was a strange light in Mu Qing's eyes. Seeing that Qin Feiyong and the others were approaching, Mu Qing lifted the corner of her mouth. She grabbed Guosweki and teleported toward Mu Tianyang. Qin Feiyong was stunned. Did he find us? Fire Lotus was surprised. Zhang Haoyan, is this interesting? Mu Qing flew for a distance and stopped in the void. She turned around and looked at Qin Feiyong and sneered. He really found us? Hui was surprised. Sure enough, we can't underestimate him. Qin Feiyong shook his head and sighed. In this situation, Mu Qing must have been using the all-seeing eye to spy on his whereabouts. The all-seeing eye was one of the top 10 fighting souls. The concealment technique couldn't escape his detection. Forget it. Qin Feiyong decisively gave up the idea of killing Mu Qing. He led the three of them around the beast tide and looked for Zhang Yunfei and the others. Mu Tianyang was in a frenzy. He was bathed in the blood of the beasts and the corpses were piled up like a mountain. Those war god-level vicious beasts didn't dare to approach. Even the half-step divine lord vicious beasts were cowering in fear. Useless trash. Get lost. I'll deal with him myself. With a few deafening roars of anger, four ferocious beasts rushed out from the back of the beast tide. They were a black panther, a golden eagle, a black wolf and a spotted python. The largest one was the spotted python, which was a few hundred meters long. When the four divine beasts appeared, the heavens and earth trembled. The beasts roared in all directions. The beast tide that surrounded Mu Tianyang also retreated in fear. Ancestor, their aura has surpassed that of a half-step Sir God. Be careful. Mu Qing's pupils contracted and she hurriedly sent a voice transmission. Mu Tianyang took a deep breath and divine power surged out. The blood blade in his hand started to emit streaks of bloody light. Obviously, he was going to revive the blood blade. This scene was also seen by Qin Feiyong and the others. Their expressions were also quite shocked. Fire Lotus snorted and said, "For Sir God-level beasts, Feng Yuan really thinks highly of us. The aura of these four beasts seems to be comparable to Guyang's. They should be at least small success Sir God level. Even Mu Tianyang would be at a disadvantage. Of course, if the blood blade fully revives, it would be a different story." Qin Feiyong laughed. Fully reviving? He shouldn't be able to do it yet, right? After all, the divine power needed for such a heaven-defying divine artifact is incomparable to other divine artifacts. Unless the blood blade revives itself, Qin Rushuang thought. I'm not sure about that. Qin Feiyong shook his head. Whether it was Changshui or the ancient castle, he had never truly revived them. The same went for the ancestor demon Snowflake and Mu Tianyang's blood blade. Every time these heaven-defying divine artifacts displayed their full power, they would revive themselves. Perhaps, with the cultivation of the god of war, it was impossible to fully revive these divine artifacts. And the standard for full revival was the power of the laws. Don't worry about him. Hurry up and find those four people. Qin Rushuang came back to her senses and urged Qin Feiyong. Qin Feiyong nodded and hid in the void as he started a carpet search. Not long later, they discovered four figures on top of a mountain peak. 3 men and a girl. Who else could it be but Li Gui and the others? They are indeed tailing us. Qin Rushuang murmured as a murderous intent appeared in her eyes. Chapter 1981. The four of them stood at the top of the mountain and concealed their aura. They looked at the beast Tide and Mu Tianyang in front of them with deep shock on their faces. With his own strength, he could actually clash with such a terrifying beast Tide. Moreover, there were 4 monarch god-level beast emperors. This person's means were also terrifying. First there was Zhang Haotian. Now there was the even more terrifying Mu Tianyang. Most importantly, they were unknown in the past. Who exactly were these 2 people? Qin Feiyang smiled and said telepathically, Brother Hua, don't say that I'm not honest. The opportunity is right in front of you. Quickly make your move. Me? Hua Yi was stunned. He shook his head and smiled bitterly. Brother Jiang, aren't you making things difficult for me? Still hiding? Fire Lotus and Qin Rushuang raised their eyebrows. It seemed that this person did not want to show his true strength. That's not right. The 4 girls must have a lot of soul stones, but he's still holding back and not making his move. Qin Dage, Sister Rushuang, don't you think this is strange? Feels like he doesn't care about these soul stones at all. Fire Lotus said telepathically. That's right. This person isn't even afraid of the black dragon. Why would he be afraid of these people? Qin Rushuang raised her eyebrows. There's only one explanation. This person doesn't lack soul stones. Perhaps his true identity is even more shocking than Ye Yan's. Qin Feiyang said to himself. Then why is he following us like this? Does he have the same intentions as Nye Yun? Fire Lotus was suspicious. Who knows? However, the feeling he gives me is the same as before. There's a hint of familiarity amidst the unfamiliarity. Qin Feiyang said telepathically. Why don't we just find a chance to control him and read his memories? Qin Rushuang suggested. His cultivation is higher than mine. I can't control him. Besides, although we all know that he's hiding his strength, we don't know how much he's hiding. What if he's stronger than us? So let's not take the risk and wait and see. Similarly, if he doesn't have any ill intentions, then if we expose him, it will instead break the current balance. Perhaps when the time comes it will backfire. Qin Feiyang thought. Alright then. Hurry up and get rid of them. Let's continue our journey. Qin Rushuang transmitted her voice. Qin Feiyang nodded and led the 3 to the foot of the mountain. He said in a low voice, wait for me here. With that, he flew towards the peak of the mountain alone. It's great to have a concealment technique. Hua Yi was endlessly envious. Those who don't lack soul stones are even better. Fire Lotus said. You don't lack soul stones? Hua Yi was stunned. He suspiciously looked at the Fire Lotus and asked, who doesn't lack soul stones? Who knows? Fire Lotus shrugged. On the mountain peak. As they watched Mu Tianyang battle the 4 beast emperors, the 4 girls grew increasingly shocked. There was also a strong sense of greed in their eyes. The reason why Mu Tianyang could collide with the beast Tide and fight the 4 beast emperors was entirely because of that bloody blade. They were also people who had seen the world. Therefore, they could judge that the bloody blade was at least a divine weapon that surpassed the peak level. Who wouldn't be tempted by such a divine weapon? Therefore, they all wanted to snatch it and take it for themselves. However, they didn't know that a crisis was approaching at this moment. I say the 4 of you don't keep looking in front. Pay attention to your back. A laugh suddenly rang out. Following that, One-Eyed Dragon and Baleful Ghost screamed as their heads exploded like watermelons. What? Seeing this scene, the girl and Zhang Yunfei's expressions changed, and they immediately turned around to look. But in the void in front of them, there wasn't even a shadow. What's going on? The 2 of them were bewildered. I've already said that you must pay attention to your back. Why didn't you listen? Qin Feiyang's voice rang out again, and it was right behind their ears. The 2 of them felt their hair stand on end. They immediately realized that it was the concealment technique. Boom! The 2 of them released their divine power. But just as they released their divine power, they suddenly felt that something had poked the back of their heads. Following that, 2 murderous auras appeared. The next moment, the 2 of them screamed in despair as their heads exploded. Flesh and blood splattered everywhere. When the corpses of the 2 men fell to the ground, Qin Feiyang also revealed himself. He lowered his head and looked at the 4 corpses. His expression didn't change at all. Then he bent down and took the 4 Qian Kuan rings. After binding them with blood, he carefully examined them. Whoosh! Hui Fire Lotus and Qin Rushuang also flew up. Looking at the headless corpses on the ground, Fire Lotus and Qin Rushuang's expressions didn't change at all. But Hui's mouth twitched violently. For perfect realm war gods were killed in seconds just like that. They died without any value. After a while, Qin Feiyong withdrew his gaze and looked at Qin Rushuang and Hui with a smile on his face. How is it? Qin Rushuang asked. A total of 200,000 soul stones. There are even more divine gems. At least 300 million in total. Not including the herbs and elixirs. Qin Feiyong smiled. 200,000. Qin Rushuang and Fire Lotus looked at each other. 200,000 soul stones. Including Nieyun and Cripple, they had obtained a total of 300,000 soul stones. This unexpected wealth was really exciting. Qin Rushuang came back to her senses and urged, let's go, let's go. There are still 100,000 soul stones waiting for us. Fire Lotus covered her mouth and laughed. Sister Rushuang, it's not just 100,000 soul stones. There are also peak divine skills and divine weapons. Yes. This assessment was really worth it. Qin Rushuang was so happy that she forgot about home. Qin Feiyong shook his head and smiled. He secretly sent the Qiankuan rings to the ancient castle. Then, he went around the beast tide and headed straight for the hinterland. As for Mu Tianyang, he was not in the mood to care. It would be best if he died under the beast tide. Ninth Heaven Palace. Inside the palace. These two young people are really terrifying. Especially this Zhang Haotian. Not only did he easily change the target of the beast tide to Mu Tianyang, but he also saw through Nieyun's disguise and obtained so many soul stones. The biggest winner of this assessment is undoubtedly him. It's a pity, yes. What a pity. If he didn't slander Ninth Heaven Palace, he would be a talent worth nurturing. The group was filled with regret. Mu Tianyang is not bad either. That blood blade, according to my judgment, should be a legendary divine weapon. And his brain is not much worse than Zhang Haotian's. We can nurture him with all our might. Someone else said. However, they did not know that the blood blade had not fully recovered yet. The black-haired old man scanned the crowd and suddenly said, you all only paid attention to Zhang Haotian and Mu Tianyang. Did you not notice that young man called Mu Qing? Mu Qing? The group raised their heads and looked at Mu Qing, who was standing beside Guo Sueki, with puzzlement in their eyes. When Zhang Haotian was in stealth mode, even we didn't know where he was. However, this Mu Qing was able to discover his location at the first moment. And I also found a problem. From the start of the assessment until now, Zhang Haotian's whereabouts seemed to be under the control of this Mu Qing. Isn't this strange? The black-haired old man said. It seems to be the case. How did he do it? Everyone started discussing. This Mu Qing, although his strength and methods are not as good as Mu Tianyang's, according to this old man's observation, Zhang Haotian seems to be afraid of this person. The black-haired old man said thoughtfully. Everyone looked at Mu Qing again, and the expression in their eyes changed. The black-haired old man said, in addition, this old man has a question in his heart. What question? Everyone was suspicious. This old man has a feeling that whether it is Nieyun's group of 6 or the beast tide, they are all targeting Zhang Haotian. And this old man has a feeling that someone is manipulating all of this behind the scenes. The black-haired old man said. Hearing this, the others were puzzled. But Feng Yuan's eyes trembled slightly. The black-haired old man said again. And why do Nieyun's group of 6 have so many soul stones? First Elder, as the son of the city lord of Star Sea City, it is not strange that Nieyun has tens of thousands of soul stones on him, right? Feng Yuan could not sit still and looked at the black-haired old man. Nieyun is not strange, but what about the other 5? More importantly, the number of soul stones on them is so similar. This gives this old man the feeling that someone gave them the same number of soul stones before the assessment. The black-haired old man said. Feng Yuan could not help but panic. The black-haired old man pondered for a while and said, the more this old man thinks about it, the more strange it is. After the assessment is over, not only do we have to investigate Mu Tianyang's identity, but also the cause of the beast tide. Speaking of this, the black-haired old man looked at a purple-clothed woman below and said, Shangguan Fenglan, This matter will be handed over to the law enforcement hall. Yes. The purple-clothed woman stood up and responded respectfully. Feng Yuan glanced at the purple-clothed woman and then at the black-haired old man. A cold light flashed in the depths of his old eyes. Back to Qin Feiyang and the others. Avoiding one monarch god-level beast after another, they finally arrived at the hinterland in the evening. Along the way, they could be said to be treading on thin ice and did not dare to be careless for a moment, because there were too many monarch god-level beasts. The four of them stopped at the top of a mountain and scanned the front. Qin Feiyang secretly said, "There is still a distance to Ninth Heaven Palace. We must be especially careful." This hinterland was even more terrifying. Monarch god-level beasts were everywhere. If they were not careful, their lives would be in danger. Fire Lotus and Qin Rushuang nodded. Hui chuckled and said, "Let me lead the way. I promise to bring you to Ninth Heaven Palace safely." "You?" The three of them looked at Hui in surprise. "Yes. Along the way I haven't done anything. I have to show some value, otherwise how shameful would it be?" Hui said. Qin Feiyang shook his head and laughed, saying, "All right, next we will listen to you. Let's go. Follow me." Hui called out and plunged into the forest below. Qin Feiyang and the other two looked at each other and followed closely behind Hui. In the Sky Dragon mountain range they definitely could not fly or teleport, because this was equivalent to a ready-made target. Therefore, they had to use the surrounding environment as a cover to avoid being discovered by the beasts. Chapter 1982. Don't talk about it. Under Hui's lead, they were able to accurately avoid the monarch god-level beasts every time. This made Qin Feiyang even more curious about Hui's identity. To know so much about the Sky Dragon mountain range, this was not something an ordinary person could do. Midnight dawn. Qin Feiyang and the other three stopped and looked up at the giant peak in front of them. The giant peak towered like a sharp sword. On the peak of the mountain, clouds lingered and a stairway to heaven could be vaguely seen. That's right. That was the Ninth Heaven Palace. In other words, after a long journey, they had finally completed the assessment. Swoosh! Suddenly, Qin Rushuang took the lead and rushed to the peak of the mountain. "Brother Jiang, shouldn't we trust each other more? Look at her, she's afraid that I'll beat her to it." Hui's face darkened as he looked at Qin Feiyang angrily. "Don't worry, you'll get your share." Qin Feiyang smiled and also rose into the sky. If not for Hui leading the way, they would not have been able to pass through the hinterland and reach the Ninth Heaven Palace so easily. Hui caught up and laughed. "How much are you going to give me?" "This." Qin Feiyang was stunned and pointed at Qin Rushuang in front of him. "It depends on her." "Then I won't count on it." Hui pursed his lips. Qin Feiyang could not help but laugh. Swoosh! The four of them landed on the peak of the mountain one after another. Qin Rushuang was naturally the first. Looking at the stairway in front of them, the four of them were filled with emotions. At this moment, other than the white-haired old man guarding the stairway, there were only the four of them at the peak of the mountain. Obviously, they were the first group to arrive here. As for the white-haired old man, he sat cross-legged beside the stairway as usual, and did not seem to notice the arrival of Qin Feiyang and the other three. Peak Divine Skill, Peak Divine Weapon, 100,000 Soul Stones. Just thinking about it makes me excited. Fire Lotus giggled. "Don't be so happy. After all, you can't cultivate even if I give you the soul stones. For you, the death fruit and the ghost wood are the most important." Qin Feiyang snickered. Fire Lotus scoffed. "Can't I be happy for you guys?" Haha. Qin Feiyang secretly laughed and turned to look at the white-haired old man. Hui whispered, "This old man's strength is terrifying." "Yes." Qin Feiyang nodded and transmitted his voice. "How much do you know about the Nine Heavens Palace?" "I don't know." Hui shook his head. "Bullshit." Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes at him. Since he knew the Heavenly Dragon mountain range like the back of his hand, how could he not know about the Nine Heavens Palace? "I'm telling the truth." Hui looked at Qin Feiyang helplessly. Then, he looked at Qin Rushuang and smiled. "Miss, it's still early. Why don't we discuss how to distribute the rewards?" Qin Rushuang glanced at Hui and frowned. "This has nothing to do with you, right? How is it not related? If I didn't lead the way, would you have come here so easily? Although I didn't contribute much along the way, I still deserve a share. Hui was unhappy. Qin Rushuang rolled her eyes and said, fine, I'll give you 10,000 soul stones. 10,000? That's too little. Hui chuckled. Big brother Hui, that's quite a lot. Although you led the way into the hinterland, my brother's contribution is the greatest. Fire Lotus said. That's right. If it wasn't for my little brother, you would have died a long time ago. There's something you don't know yet. Nie Yun's group and the beast horde were all ordered by Feng Yuan. Qin Rushuang transmitted her voice. What? Hui raised his eyebrows and turned to Qin Feiyang. It's true. Qin Feiyang nodded. That damn old bastard. Hui cursed and transmitted his voice. Why didn't you tell me earlier? Would telling you work? Can you resolve the beast horde? Fire Lotus asked. No. Hui shook his head. That's not right. Feng Yuan is determined to get rid of us in this assessment. However, it would appear that my brother is superior. He was able to easily resolve these dangers. Fire Lotus looked at Qin Feiyang with admiration and chuckled. He's really good. Hui gave Qin Feiyang a thumbs up and frowned. But that Mu Tianyang, who is he? Why is he so powerful? I don't know him. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Come on. If you don't know him, why would you go and scheme against him? Hui rolled his eyes and chuckled, but this time I really have to thank him. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been able to get rid of those beast horde. Qin Feiyang smiled and looked at Fire Lotus and Qin Rushuang, saying, You must be tired after rushing all the way here. Take a good rest. The two nodded and sat down cross-legged. They took out a divine crystal and began to absorb the energy in it to recuperate. Qin Feiyang glanced at Hui and said, Brother Hua, let's talk. Talk about what? Hui looked at him suspiciously. Who are you? Why do you want to get close to me? Of course, to show my sincerity, I will tell you my identity. Qin Feiyang transmitted his voice. I'm just an ordinary person. As for getting close to you, didn't I tell you earlier? I want you to help me pass the assessment. Hui said. Brother Hua, that's boring. You know so much about the Sky Dragon mountain range and you still need my help. Qin Feiyang frowned. Hui said helplessly, I'm telling the truth. Why don't you believe me? Fine. Pretend I didn't ask. But I sincerely hope that you don't have any ulterior motives. If you do, come at me. Don't hurt Fire Lotus and the others. Otherwise, I won't let you go. Qin Feiyang transmitted his voice. Why is your heart so heavy? Hui was speechless. There's nothing I can do about it. The world is so cruel. In order to survive, I have to be careful. Qin Feiyang said. Hui shook his head and laughed and said, Don't worry, I won't hurt you. That's for the best. Qin Feiyang also smiled. At the same time, Nine Heavens Palace. In a certain palace, a middle-aged man sat by the tea table quietly sipping tea. This person was Feng Wenhai. Bang! Suddenly, the door was kicked open. A red-haired old man walked in angrily. It was Feng Yuan. Feng Wenhai was startled, put down his teacup and asked suspiciously, Father, why are you back? Zhang Haoyan and the others have already passed the assessment. Is there a need to continue watching? Feng Yuan said gloomily, and sat down opposite Feng Wenhai. Looking at the tea set on the table, his face was as gloomy as water. Bastard! Suddenly, he shouted angrily and sent the tea table flying. Feng Wenhai jumped in fright and hurriedly asked, Did our plan to frame Zhang Haotian fail? The plan to frame him was very successful. Feng Yuan said. Then why are you doing this? Feng Wenhai was puzzled. Feng Yuan said in a deep voice, Although we succeeded in framing Zhang Haotian, it also aroused the suspicion of the Great Elder. What? Why would he suspect us? Feng Wenhai's face changed. No. He hasn't suspected us yet. However, he is already suspecting that there is someone behind Nie Yun's group and the Beast Tide. And he also ordered Shangguan Fenglan to investigate this matter, Feng Yuan said. Shangguan Fenglan. Feng Wenhai raised his eyebrows. Feng Yuan said, This matter can't be underestimated. Go to Sky Dragon Mountain Range immediately and kill all the beasts and people who know about it. Kill them? But now the assessment isn't over yet. Feng Wenhai said. Don't worry. Everyone has already dispersed. The Great Elder also didn't pay attention to the situation in Sky Dragon Mountain Range, but just in case, you better disguise yourself. Feng Yuan said. Okay, I'll go right away. Feng Wenhai nodded, got up and left in a hurry. Trash, all of you are trash. The anger in Feng Yuan's heart was really difficult to calm down. In order to bribe Nie Yun and the others, he spent a lot of soul stones, but what did he get in the end? He got nothing. He still had to do it himself. It was simply a waste of soul stones. The most infuriating thing was that these soul stones all fell into Zhang Haotian's hands in the end. Wasn't this too convenient for him? P.S. Today 2 chapters. Chapter 1983. The night was as dark as ink. In the depths of Nine Heaven Palace, beside a small stream, there was a small courtyard. The stream flowed and was so clear that one could see the bottom. In the courtyard, there was a vegetable garden, an orchard, and an old small building. It looked like a small courtyard of an ordinary family. However, this seemingly ordinary place was actually a forbidden area of the Nine Heavens Palace. In the hall of the small building, at this moment, a black-haired old man was sitting on an old yellow chair. In front of the old man stood a young and beautiful woman in purple. First Elder, didn't you ask me to investigate the beast tide? Why did you call me here in private? The woman in purple looked at the black-haired old man suspiciously. Feng Lan, don't you understand? I was in the meeting hall at that time. I deliberately said it for others to hear. The black-haired old man laughed hoarsely. His face was very kind. The woman in purple was stunned and puzzled. First Elder, what are you playing at? Think about it. If there is really someone behind this beast tide, then who has the ability to do so? The black-haired old man laughed. The woman in purple thought for a moment and said, there should be many people in the northern region who have the ability to organize a beast tide. There are indeed many people in the northern region who can organize such a beast tide. But we are in the Sky Dragon Mountain Range now. The Sky Dragon Mountain Range is not only the headquarters of the beasts in the northern region, but also the territory of Nine Heaven Palace. In my opinion, no one has the guts to organize a beast tide under our noses. The strangest thing is that this beast tide just happened to appear during the assessment. You also know that when Nine Heaven Palace recruits disciples, we only announce the location of the assessment on the day of the assessment. So if it was an outsider, they wouldn't have the time to organize a beast tide. The black-haired old man laughed. The purple-clothed woman was stunned. She asked in surprise, what do you mean? That's right. This is the doing of someone in Nine Heaven Palace. The black-haired old man laughed. Who is it? Why would he do this? The woman in purple was angry. The target of the beast tide is obviously Zhang Haotian. Think about it. Who in Nine Heaven Palace has a grudge with Zhang Haotian? The black-haired old man said. Grudges? The purple-clothed woman frowned. Suddenly, her eyes lit up as she looked at the black-haired old man. Feng Yuan? Yes. We've never even heard of the name Zhang Haotian before, let alone enmity. So there's only Feng Yuan. The black-haired old man smiled. He is the hall master of the Nine Heavens Palace's resource hall. Is there a need to make things difficult for a junior like this? Is it to wash away Feng Zijuan's shame? The purple-clothed woman raised her eyebrows. It is precisely because he is the hall master of our Nine Heavens Palace's resource hall that he cannot tolerate anyone humiliating his descendant. After all, this is indirectly slapping him in the face. The black-haired old man said. The purple-robed woman asked suspiciously, could it be that the matter of Zhang Haotian slandering the Nine Heavens Palace was also arranged by him? This old man is still unable to come to a conclusion on this matter. This old man asked you to come here because I want you to investigate this matter thoroughly, the black-haired old man said. The purple-clothed woman frowned and said, didn't you already send someone to investigate? The black-haired old man smiled and said, this old man doesn't trust anyone else, especially the people of the law enforcement hall. Great Elder, I don't like what you said. What do you mean, especially the people of the law enforcement hall? So in your eyes, the people of the law enforcement hall are all Feng Yuan's minions? Then why do you still need me as the hall master? The purple-clothed woman said unhappily. Feng Lan, you are the hall master of the law enforcement hall. I think you should know the situation of the law enforcement hall better than this old man. Perhaps the appearance of this Zhang Haotian is an opportunity given to you by the heavens." The black-haired old man smiled. The purple-clothed woman fell silent. The black-haired old man did not say anything more and smiled. "Let's take a look at the situation of the Sky Dragon mountain range first. If this old man is right, those beasts will definitely be killed." After saying that, the black-haired old man waved his hand and an image quickly appeared in the void in front of them. In the image, Mu Tianyang had already left. The 4 divine beasts were hiding in a nest. Their bodies were covered in wounds and their eyes were filled with fear. Obviously, they had escaped from Mu Tianyang's hands. Countless ferocious beasts had gathered in the surroundings. Their ferocious eyes were filled with fear that could not be removed. "I really didn't expect that human to be so terrifying. This time we have really taken a big tumble," the golden eagle said with lingering fear. "Yeah, that blood blade must be a legendary divine weapon. Speaking of which, it's all that old thing's fault for not making things clear and causing us to lose so many of our brothers. We must find him and settle this score," the 3 beasts said angrily. "No need. I took the initiative to find you." But at this moment, a cold laugh sounded in the sky. The 4 beasts looked up and saw a black-clothed man in a cloak descending in the sky. "Who are you?" the golden eagle shouted. "The person who wants your lives." The black-clothed man waved his hand and divine power poured down like a waterfall. Boom! With a loud sound, the 4 beast emperors and the surrounding beasts were instantly turned into ashes. Not a single one was left. Immediately after, the black-clothed man didn't stop and activated a teleportation altar to leave. In the wooden building, the black-haired old man looked at the purple-clothed woman and smiled. "Fenglan, did you see that? Everything is within this old man's expectations. You really can predict things like a god." The purple-clothed woman retracted her gaze and looked at the black-haired old man. It should be said to be luring the snake out of its hole. This old man deliberately said those words in the conference hall to lure them out. After all, they were also a little scared, so killing them to silence them was inevitable. The black-haired old man smiled. "Since this is a trap set by you, why didn't you wait for the rabbit to come out and catch him on the spot?" The purple-clothed woman frowned. As the Grand Elder of the 9 Heavens Palace, this old man first considers the big picture. The black-haired old man said, "Just because of the big picture, you let them do whatever they want." The purple-clothed woman said angrily, "As a palace master, how can you say such ignorant words? Some people must be destroyed step by step, otherwise it will cause internal strife." The black-haired old man's tone was somewhat angry. The purple-clothed woman raised her eyebrows and said, "Then in your opinion, who was that person just now? Appearance and voice can be changed, but divine power can never be changed. Do you still need to ask this old man who he is?" The black-haired old man said. The purple-clothed woman couldn't help but clench her fists. She lowered her head and pondered for a moment before saying, "You just said that Zhang Haotian's appearance is a chance given to me by the heavens?" The black-haired old man nodded. "Do we really have to do this?" The purple-clothed woman frowned. "If we don't do this, I'm afraid that your position as the palace master of the law enforcement hall will be taken away sooner or later." The black-haired old man said, "But does a mere Zhang Haotian have the ability to fight with them? Even if he has the ability, aren't we just using him and harming him by doing this?" The purple-clothed woman said, "If he really is a talent, he will only become stronger in the face of this kind of pressure. If he isn't, then it doesn't matter if he dies." The black-haired old man chuckled. The purple-clothed woman said helplessly, "Forgive me for being blunt, but you're really ruthless." The black-haired old man laughed and asked, "Is there still no news of the vice palace master's whereabouts?" "No." The purple-clothed woman shook her head. As the number 1 figure of the 9 Heaven Palace, he's always so willful and disappears whenever he wants. What a headache. The black-haired old man rubbed his forehead and said unhappily, "There's nothing we can do about it. The vice palace master's personality is like this." The purple-clothed woman smiled bitterly. "No matter what, we have to find him as soon as possible. We have to keep an eye on him in the future. How can he be like this all the time?" The black-haired old man said angrily, "Okay." The purple-clothed woman nodded and said, Then how should we deal with Jiang Haoyan? After all, everyone knows that he's slandering our nine-heaven palace. Before we find out the truth, we have to do something. It'll be hard to convince everyone. You can do as you see fit, the black-haired old man said. The purple-clothed woman's face darkened and she said angrily, "You're just like the vice palace master. You only know how to leave everything to others. This is called the capable ones do more work." The black-haired old man laughed. The purple-clothed woman rolled her eyes and then turned around and walked out of the wooden building. She stood in the courtyard and looked at the night sky. Jiang Haoyan, after muttering a few words, the purple-clothed woman disappeared without a trace. Chapter 1984. At the top of the mountain, not far from the stairway, Qin Feiyang and Hua Yi were also sitting cross-legged on the ground, resting with their eyes closed. Time passed quietly. About 2 hours passed. Whoosh! Accompanied by the sound of breaking air, 2 men and a woman landed on the top of the mountain. It was Mu Tianyang, Mu Qing, and Guosweki. As soon as he saw Qin Feiyang, Mu Tianyang's face was filled with anger. Qin Feiyang opened his eyes and said with a bright smile, "Oh, good brother, you're finally here." Hearing the words good brother, the veins on Mu Tianyang's forehead suddenly jumped. Originally, first place should have been his. But he didn't expect to be schemed against by this bastard. Although the beast tide and the 4 beast emperors didn't cause any actual harm to him, he really couldn't swallow this anger. "Don't be angry. We're all brothers, what's there to be calculative about? How about this, we'll split the rewards equally," Qin Feiyang said with a smile. "I don't need your pity," Mu Tianyang snorted coldly, holding back the anger in his heart. He raised his head and looked at the stairway, then his gaze fell on the white-haired old man. His pupils constricted slightly. He turned his head to look at Qin Feiyang and transmitted his voice. "Do you know what Dong Zhengyang told me and the demon ancestor?" Qin Feiyang was taken aback and asked curiously, "Tell me," Mu Tianyang secretly said. "He told us not to be calculative with you and to forget the previous grudges." "That's not right." Qin Feiyang shook his head. "What's wrong?" Mu Tianyang raised his eyebrows. "He should have said that I'm not calculative with you, not that you're not calculative with me," Qin Feiyang secretly said. "Is there a difference?" Mu Tianyang was suspicious. "Of course there is. He told you not to be calculative with me, which is equivalent to saying that it was all my fault in the past." "But whose fault was it in the past?" Qin Feiyang sneered. "I don't want to argue with you about these boring things. Now let me ask you, do you want to cooperate?" Mu Tianyang thought to himself. "Cooperation?" Qin Feiyang was stunned. "You have also seen how terrifying this ancient world is. With our current strength, it will be very difficult for us to survive. But if we join forces, we can definitely make a name for ourselves in the northern region." Mu Tianyang transmitted his voice. "I'm sorry, but that's not where my ambition lies," Qin Feiyang said. "I know that you came to the ancient world to look for Qin Badian, but the process of searching will be very difficult. Can you handle it alone?" Mu Tianyang said. Qin Feiyang said, "From Iron Ox Town to today, haven't I been alone? All right. As you wish. But I'll say the ugly words first. If you don't cooperate, I will think of ways to get rid of you." Mu Tianyang transmitted his voice, with a piercing chill in his words. In the past 2 days, because of the entanglement with Nie Yun and the others, and meeting Mu Tianyang and Mu Qing, he had completely forgotten about this woman. In the crowd, he really did not find Gao Xiaowei. Gao Xiaowei is just a beginner martial immortal. Although the young master asked someone to take care of her, I'm afraid she's not going to make it. Qin Rushuang said to herself. "Life and death is up to fate." Qin Feiyang sighed. He had done enough for Gao Xiaowei and Gao Xiaolong, this pair of brother and sister. He had a clear conscience. As for what will happen in the future, let nature take its course. Crack. Suddenly, the token in Hua Yi's hand shattered into pieces with a crisp sound. This also meant that the time was up. Qin Feiyang and the others took out their tokens, which were also shattered. But at this moment, 6 figures rushed over and landed on the mountain peak. Qin Feiyang looked over and a smile crept onto his face. Of the 6 people, 5 were men and only 1 was a woman. The 5 men were all at the perfect war god realm, and their bodies were all riddled with wounds. The woman was only a beginner martial immortal. It was Gao Xiaowei. Fire Lotus laughed. To be able to take care of Gao Xiaowei and pass the test, it seems like the 5 of them are not simple. If they were simple, the young master wouldn't have asked them to take care of Gao Xiaowei. Qin Feiyang smiled. At the same time, Gao Xiaowei bent over and placed her hands on her knees. She stood behind the 5 men, panting like a cow. But her face was filled with joy. She finally made it. From now on, she will be a disciple of the 9 Heavens Palace. I wonder if Big Brother Jiang passed the test? She took a deep breath and looked up at the crowd. Soon she saw Qin Feiyang and the others in the crowd. He also passed? It makes sense. Big Brother Jiang is so strong, it would be strange if he didn't pass. But she did not greet Qin Feiyang and the others because she was afraid of attracting attention. Little sister Xiaowei, are you happy? After the 5 men calmed down, they took the healing pills and turned to Gao Xiaowei with a smile. Happy? I never thought that I would become a disciple of the 9 Heavens Palace. Thank you so much. I've been a burden to you all the way here. Otherwise, you would have come here long ago. Gao Xiaowei looked at the 5 men with an apologetic face. It's okay. After all, we're all on the same side. What I'm curious about is, who was the first to come here? The 5 men scanned the crowd, their eyes filled with suspicion. The reward for the first place was what everyone wanted, but there was only one spot. Who would be the lucky one? Gao Xiaowei glanced at Qin Feiyang again. Could it be this man? Boom! Suddenly, a terrifying aura descended. On the stairway to heaven, a middle-aged man in black with a cold face walked down step by step. Feng Wenhai. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed with a cold light. Hui glanced at the gazes of the people around him and said, Brother Jiang, what's going on? How would I know? Qin Feiyang was furious. This was completely out of his expectations. In fact, he had thought that Feng Wenhai would make things difficult for him after the assessment. However, he did not expect that Feng Wenhai would be so vicious as to directly target their lives. Slandering us! An angry shout suddenly rang out. It was Qin Rushuang. She stared at Feng Wenhai with a gloomy expression. Slandering us? I didn't wrongly accuse you in this matter. That's because it was personally investigated by the first elder. Feng Wenhai said coldly, but his eyes were full of sneers. Let's see how you can jump around now. We didn't do it at all. Ask the great elder to come out. I want to confront him face to face. Qin Rushuang said angrily. How dare you? Who is the great elder? Is he someone a nobody like you can see? Feng Wenhai shouted. Even if he's a big shot, he can't be unreasonable and slander us. Qin Rushuang shouted. She was completely furious. It was not easy to get first place and the reward was in their hands. However, they were suddenly accused of such a groundless crime. They even wanted to kill them? This was simply unreasonable. You're rebelling. You actually dared to scold the first elder in front of so many people. You're really hopeless. Feng Wenhai was furious and shouted angrily. Qin Rushuang was about to speak again. Calm down. Qin Feiyang stopped her and looked up at Feng Wenhai. He said indifferently, Elder Feng, I don't want to say much. I only want to give you a word of advice. God is watching what people do. Those despicable people will suffer retribution sooner or later. Let's go. With that, Qin Feiyang waved his hand and turned to leave. Feng Wenhai, you've gone too far this time. Hui looked at Feng Wenhai and shook his head in disappointment. He also turned to leave. Just you wait. We won't let this go so easily. Qin Rushuang and Fire Lotus also sneered and turned to chase after Qin Feiyang. They still dare to be so arrogant? Feng Wenhai was a little stunned. These few people were really fearless. In terms of courage, he was sincerely impressed. This was because there was no one in the world who dared to be so arrogant in front of him in Empyrean Palace. However, they wanted to leave just like that? It was impossible. However, just as he was about to attack, the 300 people on the mountain peak suddenly swarmed forward and surrounded Qin Feiyang and the other 3. Gao Xiaowei hesitated for a moment and also went forward to act. As for Mu Tianyang and the other two, they had no intention of interfering. They were all gloating. The white-haired old man sitting beside the stairway was even calmer. He did not even open his eyes. Stop right there. Didn't you hear what Elder Feng said? The higher-ups gave the order to kill you on the spot. You want to leave just like that? Not a chance. You dare to slander Empyrean Palace? That means you are going against us disciples of Empyrean Palace. Today, as long as we leave, you won't be able to leave. The 300+ people surrounded Qin Feiyang and the other three, all of them glaring at them like tigers watching their prey. They did not hide their murderous intent. Get lost. Qin Feiyang's patience was reaching its limit. His gaze was like a sharp blade that emitted a bone-piercing aura. The few young men and women standing at the front were all perfect war gods. However, when they saw Qin Feiyang's gaze, they could not help but feel a sense of fear. Brother, kill them, Fire Lotus said. Qin Rushuang also looked at Qin Feiyang and said, I allow you to start a massacre. The two did not transmit their voices. Their eyes were filled with murderous intent. Hearing Fire Lotus and Qin Rushuang's words, the surrounding people could not help but take a step back. Although Qin Feiyang's cultivation was only at the initial war god realm, since he was the first to arrive at Empyrean Palace, he must have some terrifying trump card. At the same time, Huoyi's heart skipped a beat. He turned his head and looked at Qin Feiyang and the other two's expressions. He immediately knew that something was wrong. After interacting with these three for so many days, this was the first time he had seen such terrifying gazes. If this continued, the three of them would probably really start a massacre here. Qin Feiyang scanned the surrounding crowd. Seeing that these people did not give way, a monstrous murderous intent exploded and he shouted, I'll say it one last time, get lost. At this moment Qin Feiyang's body was surrounded by a murderous aura like a blood-red flame. This terrifying murderous aura was something that no one at the scene had ever felt before. Even Feng Wenhai could not help but narrow his eyes and feel a chill in his heart. What kind of person was this? Why was there such a terrifying murderous aura hiding in his body? Compared to before, it was as if he was a completely different person. It was as if a god of death had returned. Guosweki and Gao Shaohui stared at Qin Feiyang with pale faces. This was because in their impression, Qin Feiyang had always been a gentle and amiable person. Therefore, at this moment when they saw Qin Feiyang revealing such a side, they were not used to it, but more than that, they were scared. Not only was this murderous aura terrifying to an unprecedented degree, it was also cold-blooded and merciless. They could even smell the scent of blood, as if a demon had descended. Even the white-haired old man was startled. The white-haired old man slowly opened his eyes and stared at Qin Feiyang, who was standing among the crowd, with a flicker in his eyes. No one knew what he was thinking in his heart. But soon he closed his eyes again, and his expression calmed down. Chapter 1986. At the top of the mountain, the murderous aura spread in all directions, as if it was dyed with blood. Feng Wenhai was not in a hurry to make a move. His eyes were full of sneers. However, even if he made a move, he probably wouldn't be able to do it. Because at the top of the sky stairway, a woman in purple had already arrived. This person was Shangguan Fenglan, but she didn't say a word and just watched silently. In addition to the clouds and mist, everyone's attention was now on Qin Feiyang, so they didn't notice her. Sigh. After a long time, Qin Feiyang took a deep breath, turned his head to look at Feng Wenhai and sighed. I wanted to keep a low profile, but you guys are so aggressive. It seems that I am not born to keep a low profile. The corner of Feng Wenhai's mouth twitched. He actually pretended. You will regret it immediately. Qin Feiyang spoke again. Regret? Feng Wenhai was speechless. Was there really nothing wrong with this little bastard's head? Although he had the strength to instantly kill a perfect war god, he was a dignified elder of law enforcement. How could Nie Yun and the others compare to him? The corner of Feng Wenhai's mouth curled up into a mocking smile. A naked provocation. Get ready to run for your life. But Mu Tianyang couldn't calm down and transmitted his voice. Mu Qing's face was also extremely heavy. Guosweki looked at the two of them and couldn't help but feel nervous. Even Feng Wenhai didn't care. What kind of tricks did this man have? Boom! All of a sudden, A blood-red domain condensed around Qin Feiyang. A murderous aura that was even more terrifying than before flooded in all directions like a tide. In an instant, the 300 people surrounding Qin Feiyang and the others all collapsed to the ground. Their faces were filled with despair and fear. Slaughter domain. Upon seeing Qin Feiyang activate the slaughter domain, Mu Qianyang's gaze suddenly trembled and shouted, "Go!" Mu Qing also dragged Guosweki and fled with Mu Tianyang. The others didn't know, but they had seen the slaughter domain with their own eyes. They also knew how terrifying the slaughter domain was. What is this thing? Why am I panicking? Feng Wenhai was also staring at Qin Feiyang in shock. The contempt he had for Qin Feiyang earlier instantly vanished without a trace. The white-haired old man opened his eyes again. His eyes were filled with astonishment. After living for so many years, this kind of killing intent was simply unheard of. He then looked at Mu Tianyang and the other two. His old eyes flashed as he said, "Shangguan Fenglan, what else do you want to see?" Shangguan Fenglan. Feng Wenhai's eyes trembled as he scanned the surroundings. He turned to look at the top of the stairway and his expression changed drastically. He bowed and said, "Greetings, Temple Master." Shangguan Fenglan was also extremely shocked at this moment. Although he didn't know what Qin Feiyang's domain was, he didn't know. However, even she felt an inexplicable sense of panic. Whoosh! Hearing the white-haired old man and Feng Wenhai's voices, she let out a long sigh and walked down step by step. Who is she? He looks about the same age as us. Why is Feng Wenhai so respectful? Temple Master. Which Temple Master is she? The more than 300 disciples raised their heads and looked at Shangguan Fenglan suspiciously. However, the panic in their hearts did not dissipate. Because Qin Feiyang's killing domain was still there. Qin Feiyang and the other three were also looking at Shangguan Fenglan with a trace of suspicion between their brows. After a while, Shangguan Fenglan walked down and stopped beside Feng Wenhai. Feng Wenhai looked at Shangguan Fenglan respectfully and said, "Temple Master, when did you come?" Shangguan Fenglan said indifferently, "When you came, I was already here." Feng Wenhai's heart trembled. Shangguan Fenglan said, "Feng Wenhai, I want to ask you, when did we say we were going to kill Zhang Haotian on the spot?" This. Feng Wenhai was slightly stunned and said suspiciously, "Isn't the evidence conclusive?" "The evidence is conclusive," Shangguan Fenglan murmured, looking down at Qin Feiyang. An inexplicable light flashed in her eyes, and she said indifferently, "Although it is true we did not say we were going to kill him." "Temple Master. What do you mean? Shouldn't they be killed for slandering Jiutian Palace?" Feng Wenhai said, "They should be killed. However, the heavens are virtuous, and they are young and ignorant, which is why they did such stupid things. We might as well give them another chance." Shangguan Fenglan said indifferently. "What?" Feng Wenhai was stunned. She was going to let these people go? "Brother Jiang, what do you mean?" Hua Yi was also stunned. "I don't know." Qin Feiyang shook his head. Shangguan Fenglan looked at the four and said, "Zhang Haotian, Zhang Rushuang, Zhang Fire Lotus. Hua Yi, do you admit your mistakes? What did we do wrong?" "Someone is framing me," Qin Rushuang said. Shangguan Fenglan said, "Then tell me, who framed you? Do you have evidence?" Qin Rushuang was speechless. There was no doubt that Feng Wenhai and the others were behind this. However, they really could not produce any evidence. What a glib tongue. Sophistry. "Temple Master, the first elder sent someone to investigate this matter, and you saw it with your own eyes. It can't be fake. Don't be fooled by them." Feng Wenhai bowed. "You don't need to remind me. I know what to do." Shangguan Fenglan waved her hand and looked at the four people. "Do you have evidence?" Qin Rushuang shook her head. "Since you don't have evidence, what are you still arguing about? If you admit your mistakes, you must change. I'm giving you a chance. Don't waste it." Shangguan Fenglan snorted coldly. Hearing this, Qin Rushuang suddenly became angry. Hui saw that the situation was not good and said telepathically, "My lady, can you stop talking? Can't you see that this woman is saving us? I know she's helping us, but I can't admit it." Qin Rushuang said to herself. Hui's heart was full of helplessness. He turned his head and glanced at Qin Feiyang saying, "Brother Jiang, say something." Qin Feiyang looked at Qin Rushuang. then at Hui and then at Shangguan Fenglan. His eyes flickered. Shangguan Fenglan also looked at Qin Feiyang without any change in her expression. Brother Jiang, I know you have a temper. But if we really fall out with Zhoutian Palace, it won't do us any good. You have to think twice. Hui transmitted his voice anxiously. Qin Feiyang and Shangguan Fenglan looked at each other like this. The more than 300 people did not dare to make a sound. After an unknown period of time, suddenly, the killing zone around Qin Feiyang dissipated. Mu Tianyang and Mu Qing finally breathed a sigh of relief. Hui also let out a long breath. Qin Feiyang sighed deeply and said to Shangguan Fenglan, "We know our mistake." Feiyang. Brother Jiang. Qin Rushuang and Fire Lotus were stunned and immediately cried out secretly. Knowing their mistake was equivalent to admitting it. Wasn't this deliberately giving Feng Wenhai a chance to deal with them? Alright, don't say anymore. I know what I'm doing. Qin Feiyang secretly said. Palace Master, did you hear that? He admitted it. Since he admitted it, he should be killed immediately as a warning to others. As expected, Feng Wenhai immediately began to make things difficult. Shangguan Fenglan ignored him and looked at Qin Feiyang. Since you're wrong, do you want to change it? Definitely. Qin Feiyang nodded. Very good. Then I'll give you a chance and allow you to enter Zhoutian Palace. However, rewards and punishments must be clear, or it will be difficult to convince the public. Your first place will be annulled and replaced by the second place. Naturally, you won't get the reward. Moreover, you who should be inner disciples will be demoted to outer disciples. Do you have any objections? Shangguan Fenglan asked. No. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Shangguan Fenglan said, all right, then it's settled. Palace Master, I have something to say. Feng Wenhai hurriedly said. Speak. Shangguan Fenglan said. I know you're kind, Palace Master, but nothing can be accomplished without rules. If we let them go after committing such a grave mistake, how will Zhoutian Palace stand in the future? Most importantly, if you do this, people will definitely say that you're deliberately protecting them. This will damage your reputation. Feng Wenhai said. Wrong. Shangguan Fenglan shook her head. What's wrong? Feng Wenhai was suspicious. Just as you said, even though they committed such a grave mistake, I was still willing to show them mercy and let them off. Doesn't this prove that my Nine Heavens Palace is a reasonable place? Therefore, by doing this, I'm adding flowers to brocade and giving Zhoutian Palace a better reputation. Everyone will definitely rely on and respect Zhoutian Palace in the future. After Shangguan Fenglan finished speaking, she looked at the 300 people and smiled. Do you think what I said makes sense? Palace Master is benevolent. Zhoutian Palace will definitely rise to a higher level in the future. Those people immediately shouted. Shangguan Fenglan nodded her head in satisfaction and turned to Feng Wenhai. She asked with a smile, do you see that? Do you still think I'm wrong? I wouldn't dare. Feng Wenhai's pupils shrank and he quickly shook his head. Since there are no objections, then hurry up and arrange it. I think these little guys can't wait to enter Zhoutian Palace. Shangguan Fenglan swept her gaze across the crowd and smiled. Yes. Feng Wenhai respectfully replied. He looked gloomily at Qin Feiyang's group and shouted, Mu Tianyang, Mu Qing, Guosweki, come forward. The three of them exchanged a glance and quickly walked to the heavenly stairway. Feng Wenhai took out a Qianquan bag and said, apart from Qin Feiyang's group of 4, you were the first to come here. Their rankings are now invalid, so you're first. After saying that, he threw the Qianquan bag to Mu Tianyang. Mu Tianyang hastily caught the Qianquan bag and bowed. Thank you, Elder. Thank you, Palace Master. Mu Qing secretly said, Ancestor, quickly take a look. Is there really a divine art, a divine item, and a soul stone? Mu Tianyang examined it and nodded. There's no mistake. Haha. Mu Qing immediately laughed inwardly and glanced at Qin Feiyang. She transmitted her voice, Qin Feiyang, what's this called? By the way, man proposes but God disposes. You didn't expect this reward to fall into our hands in the end, did you? Qin Feiyang glanced at Mu Qing and then looked at Mu Tianyang, who also had a smug expression. He was extremely unhappy. How frustrating. Qin Rushuang and Fire Lotus were also indignant. They could choose not to take this reward. But if these two bastards took advantage of it, they would be unhappy. Chapter 1987. Feng Wenhai looked at Qin Feiyang and Mu Tianyang, his eyes twinkling. As an elder of the enforcement hall, he definitely had extraordinary eyesight. Therefore, he could tell at a glance that not only did the two have a grudge, but it had reached an irreconcilable stage. Perhaps this Mu Tianyang could be used well. However, Feng Wenhai glanced at Shangguan Fenglan. What did this woman mean today? After knowing her for so many years, he naturally knew Shangguan Fenglan very well. In the past, this woman never cared about these trivial matters. She rarely even appeared in public. But today not only did she come out, but she also helped Zhang Haoyin and the others? Wait, could this woman be the backer of Zhang Haoyin and the others? Feng Wenhai's heart trembled. If that was the case, then this matter was not good. Although Shangguan Fenglan looked harmless, she was actually a woman with extremely terrifying means. This matter must be thoroughly investigated. Feng Wenhai's eyes flashed, looking down at the people on the mountain peak, and said, "Next, please extract a drop of blood essence and drip it on the stairway to heaven." Mu Tianyang and the other two were the first to step forward. The others followed closely behind. Blood essence. Qin Feiyang muttered. "Qin Dage, what about you?" Fire Lotus looked at Qin Feiyang worriedly and asked secretly. Qin Rushuang was also quite worried. Everything else could be hidden except for blood essence, because blood essence could not be changed. Once Qin Feiyang extracted the blood essence, then the matter of the purple gold dragon blood would naturally not be hidden from everyone. Qin Feiyang said, "Gao Xiaolong has already mentioned this matter, and I have been thinking about it. After saving Gao Xiaolong in the Sky Dragon Mountain range, he got the information about the fusion of blood essence from Gao Xiaolong." Fire Lotus asked, "Then do you have a way now?" Qin Feiyang said secretly, "I can only think of one way, which is to cause chaos and fuse the blood essence into the stairway to heaven when no one is paying attention." Chaos. Fire Lotus and Qin Rushuang looked at each other. "This matter still depends on you guys," Qin Feiyang said. The two girls were stunned. Yes, Qin Feiyang secretly agreed. Looking at the backs of Mu Tianyang and Mu Qing, he transmitted his voice. "These two people are a little too complacent now. Go and suppress their arrogance and drag them down with you." Drag him down? The two girls didn't understand. Qin Feiyang whispered a few words in their ears. "Good idea." The two women looked at each other and smiled, then immediately walked towards Mu Tianyang and Mu Qing. Mu Tianyang and Mu Qing had just finished fusing the essence blood, and were about to turn around and retreat to the side. However, just as they turned around, Qin Rushuang and the other two stepped forward, raised their arms and slapped them hard in the face. Ugh! The peak of the mountain fell into deathly silence once more. Shangguan Fenglan and Feng Wenhai also stared at Qin Rushuang and Fire Lotus in shock. Mu Tianyang and Mu Qing were even more dumbfounded on the spot. Hui also looked at the two of them in shock. What was going on? "What are you doing?" After coming back to their senses, Mu Tianyang and Mu Qing were suddenly furious and shouted at the two of them. Qin Rushuang and Hui didn't say a word and directly slapped them in the face again. "Bastard! Have you guys gone crazy? Don't think that I won't dare to hit you just because you are women." There was no doubt. The two consecutive slaps made Mu Tianyang and Hui's hair stand on end. Putting Mu Qing aside, let's talk about Mu Tianyang. As an emperor, being slapped in the face in public by a woman was a complete humiliation to him. "Go ahead and hit us." Qin Rushuang approached Mu Tianyang with a frosty face. Mu Tianyang, on the other hand, was at a loss and kept retreating. "You heartless bastard. You used to say that you liked me a lot, but when you saw us being bullied just now, you actually did nothing? I must be blind. How could I fall for a useless man like you?" Qin Rushuang said angrily, looking wronged. "I like you?" Mu Tianyang was stunned. What was going on? Mu Qing also looked at Mu Tianyang in shock. "Why are you looking at him? You are also a heartless bastard." Fire Lotus shouted. "Me?" Mu Qing pointed at her nose and asked in shock. "If not you, who else could it be? Let me tell you, if you don't make it clear today, I will never forgive you." As Hulian spoke, tears flowed out of her eyes. Mu Tianyang and Mu Qing looked at each other. Was she having a stroke? Qin Feiyang was secretly refining the blood essence while sweeping his eyes over everyone. Basically, everyone's attention was on Qin Rushuang and the other three. However, he noticed that Shangguan Fenglan seemed to be looking at him intentionally or unintentionally. Could it be that this woman had already guessed that Qin Rushuang and Mu Qing's current actions were ordered by him? If that was the case, then there was definitely no way to integrate the essence blood into the stairway to heaven without anyone noticing. It seemed that he had to think of an idea. Suddenly, Qin Feiyong's eyes lit up and he said to himself, "Hui kicked me?" What? Hui was stunned. He suspected that there was something wrong with his ears. Otherwise, why would someone make such a request? "Hurry up," Qin Feiyong urged. "Are you sure?" Hui was stunned. "Yes, hurry up," Qin Feiyong said to himself. "Okay." Hui shook his head helplessly. What a strange request. Then he kicked Qin Feiyong's butt fiercely. Qin Feiyong immediately exclaimed as his entire body soared into the air and pounced on the stairway to heaven. The sudden scene caused everyone present to fall into a state of shock once again. Then, everyone's gaze shifted to Qin Feiyong. Qin Rushuang and Fire Lotus were also a little stunned. Qin Feiyong said to himself, "Go and settle the score with Hui." Settle the score? Qin Rushuang and Fire Lotus were stunned for a moment before they suddenly understood and said angrily, "Hui, you bastard, why did you bully my brother?" "Me?" Hui looked at the angry Qin Rushuang and Fire Lotus with an innocent face. This was what Zhang Haoyan asked for. How could he be blamed? Everyone's gaze fell on Hui again. One moment he slapped others in public, the next moment he kicked others away. What kind of people were these? At the same time, Qin Feiyong, who was lying on the stairway to heaven, used his body as a cover to take out his blood essence and fuse it with the stairway to heaven. And in order to cover the aura of the purple gold dragon blood, he erupted with a burst of divine power. After fusing with the blood essence, he immediately jumped up and angrily rushed towards Hui. In this way, everyone naturally thought that it was because he was kicked by Hui that he released his divine power. What the hell is going on? Looking at Qin Feiyong's angry face, Hui was like a bullied little wife, his face full of grievance. Enough! A cold shout suddenly sounded. Qin Feiyong and the others froze and turned to look at Feng Wenhai. Feng Wenhai said angrily, "Lord Temple Master is here, and you still dare to be so presumptuous. You are indeed a group of arrogant people. This is our private matter, what does it have to do with you? Elder Feng, do you even want to care about our food and drink?" Qin Feiyong said indifferently. "You." Feng Wenhai was so angry that he stomped his feet. "This time, this temple master will not speak up for you. Because as a disciple of Nine Heavens Palace, you can't be so unruly, and you can't offend the enforcement elder," Shangguan Fenglan said. Qin Feiyong lowered his head and said, "Disciple knows his mistake and will definitely change in the future." Shangguan Fenglan nodded. Feng Wenhai glared at Qin Feiyong and angrily shouted, "Continue." Everyone's pupils shrank and they once again rushed towards the sky stairway. Qin Feiyong also mixed in with the crowd and pretended to be calm. "Temple Master, you've seen it with your own eyes. These people are naughty by nature. If we let them enter Nine Heavens Palace, who knows what kind of trouble they will cause. This subordinate still thinks that we should directly kill them to prevent future troubles." Feng Wenhai couldn't swallow this anger and looked at Shangguan Fenglan. "Feng Wenhai, you are our Nine Heavens Palace's enforcement elder. How can you be so narrow-minded?" Shangguan Fenglan said. "I'm narrow-minded? Temple Master, your words are a little too much. I've been in the enforcement hall for so many years. What kind of people don't you know? If they are really good people, I definitely won't make things difficult for them. But they are all naughty people. Temple Master, forgive me for offending you. Are you so protective of them because of some other reason?" Feng Wenhai asked cautiously. He was obviously trying to get information from Shangguan Fenglan. This Temple Master has never seen them. Shangguan Fenglan shook her head. "Then what are you doing?" Feng Wenhai frowned. Shangguan Fenglan said, "This Temple Master has said before that I just couldn't bear it. Why? Do you suspect that they are my people?" No. Feng Wenhai hurriedly waved his hand. "How about this? In order to prove this Temple Master's innocence, you will be in charge of supervising them in the future. If they dare to act recklessly again, just do it," Shangguan Fenglan said. "Okay." Feng Wenhai nodded. He couldn't ask for more. As long as they had nothing to do with Shangguan Fenglan, it would be easy for him to get rid of these people in the future with his status. After a while, more than 300 people all retreated to the side. Shangguan Fenglan glanced at the crowd and ordered, "Feng Wenhai, bring them up." "Yes." Feng Wenhai responded respectfully. He looked at Qin Feiyang and the others and shouted, "Follow me." After saying that, he turned around and walked up the stairway to heaven. Everyone immediately followed and surged upwards in a grandiose manner. Qin Feiyang and the others looked at each other and also stepped onto the stairway to heaven. This time, the stairway to heaven didn't react at all like last time. Mu Tianyang frowned and caught up with Qin Feiyang with Mu Qing and Guisweki. He said telepathically, "Qin Feiyang, are you up to something again?" "No." Qin Feiyang shook his head. Mu Tianyang said angrily, "Do you dare say that Qin Rushuang and the others weren't ordered by you?" He was really unable to calm down after being slapped twice for no reason. "It's just 2 slaps. What's the big deal? I'm not even angry that you stole our reward." Qin Feiyang said lightly, "You've gone too far. We also didn't expect Shangguan Fenglan to abolish your ranking and give the reward to us. If you want to blame someone, you should blame Shangguan Fenglan." Mu Tianyang said angrily, "After saying so much, isn't the reward still in your hands? If you're so capable, why don't you return it to me now?" Qin Feiyang sneered secretly. "Return it to you? Then I've taken these 2 slaps for nothing." Mu Tianyang snorted coldly. Chapter 1988. You won't get slapped for nothing. Give me the reward and I'll let you slap me back. Qin Feiyang snickered secretly. "There's no need for that." Mu Tianyang sneered. Mu Qing frowned and said, "Ancestor, haven't you overlooked the most serious problem?" "What?" Mu Tianyang was suspicious. Mu Qing said with a strange expression, "Putting aside the fact that we've been slapped twice, it seems like we've all become heartless men now?" Mu Tianyang's face twitched. Those who did not know the truth might really think that was what Qin Rushuang and Fire Lotus had said earlier. Wait, it's not that simple. Mu Tianyang seemed to have thought of something and his face was full of anger. "What's wrong?" Mu Qing was suspicious. "This is a trap. The people who framed Qin Feiyang this time must be the Feng family. In other words, the Feng family wants to get rid of this guy no matter what. Originally, we could have cut ties with them. However, now that Qin Rushuang and the others have made such a scene, our relationship with Qin Feiyang has become ambiguous. The Feng family will definitely hate us as well. In short, now we've been dragged down by him." Mu Qing said in a deep voice. "That makes sense. That bastard, he's always thinking of plotting against us." Mu Qing glared at Qin Feiyang angrily and thought to herself, "What if the Feng family really comes to make trouble for us?" Mu Tianyang pondered for a while and rubbed his forehead. He sighed. "It's probably useless to explain. We can only wait and see when the time comes." Sigh. Mu Qing could not help but sigh inwardly as well. He really could not be careless when interacting with that bastard Qin Feiyang. Otherwise, he would be plotted against. Wait. All of a sudden, Mu Qing stopped in his tracks and looked at Qin Feiyang's back with a bewildered expression. "What's wrong?" Mu Tianyang was suspicious. Mu Qing thought to herself, "Why didn't anyone discover Qin Feiyang's purple golden dragon blood before? I said you're stupid, but you still won't admit it. Do you still remember that Hua Yi kicked Qin Feiyang? He must have used that opportunity to secretly fuse his blood essence into the stairway to heaven." Mu Tianyang thought to himself. "I see. On one hand he dragged us into the water, and on the other he successfully deceived us. What a good plan." Mu Qing stared at Qin Feiyang's back with cold eyes. Although he had obtained the reward for being first place, he was not happy at all. Mu Tianyang was the same. Mu Qing was so angry that she transmitted her voice, "Ancestor, why don't we directly expose his identity? If it was in the past, it would have been a good idea. But now, with the 2 women making a fuss and exposing his identity, I'm afraid we'll be in trouble. To be honest, I really regret it. I shouldn't have hesitated before the assessment. We were really one step behind." Mu Tianyang sighed. "According to what you said, now we have to help him hide his identity?" Mu Qing raised her eyebrows. That's right. What's the situation with Qin Batian in Empyrean Palace? We have to figure this out. If the rumors are true and he has a high status in Empyrean Palace, then we'll benefit from Qin Feiyang. But if it's the opposite of the rumors, then we'll naturally be implicated. Mu Tianyang suddenly became angry when he said this. Why did it feel like he and Qin Feiyang were grasshoppers on the same rope, and their lives were tied together? Heartless man Qin Rushuang. How could he like Qin Baishan's daughter? What a headache. Below, Shangguan Fenglan glanced at Qin Feiyang and the others, walked down the sky stairway, stood in front of the white-haired old man and bowed. Master, if Qin Feiyang were here, he would definitely be shocked. This seemingly ordinary old man was actually Shangguan Fenglan's master. But the white-haired old man still did not open his eyes, and asked, "Is this your idea or the First Elder's?" "First Elder," Shangguan Fenglan said. The white-haired old man fell silent. Shangguan Fenglan waited for a moment, but the white-haired old man did not speak, so she took the initiative to ask, "Master, do you think Zhang Haotian has the ability?" "Yes." The white-haired old man nodded. Shangguan Fenglan was surprised that her master did not hesitate at all. It seemed that Zhang Haotian was really a talent. "I've retired and don't want to care about these things anymore. When you go back and see the First Elder, tell him to be careful not to draw fire." After the white-haired old man finished speaking, he fell silent. Draw fire? Shangguan Fenglan was stunned. But the white-haired old man had no intention of explaining. Shangguan Fenglan smiled helplessly, bowed and said, "I'll take my leave." After saying that, without waiting for the white-haired old man to respond, she turned around and walked up the stairway to heaven. Because she knew that the white-haired old man would not respond to her. "Also, tell him again that there's no need to look for the deputy palace lord's whereabouts," the white-haired old man suddenly said. Shangguan Fenglan was surprised, turned to look at the white-haired old man, and asked, "Master, do you know where the deputy palace lord is?" However, the white-haired old man did not speak again. Shangguan Fenglan smiled bitterly, turned around, and quickly disappeared into the clouds. At the same time, at the top of the stairway to heaven was an empty square. Qin Feiyang and a group of people gathered in the square, looking curiously in front of them. The square was about 1,000 feet wide, and there was an eye-catching altar in the center. This altar was identical in shape to the teleportation altar. However, it was several times larger than the teleportation altar, resembling a small mountain. Outside the square was an endless stretch of towering mountains. In the mountains, the vegetation was lush, clouds and mist lingered, and all kinds of auspicious beasts and birds flew between the mountains. There were snow-white cranes. There were colorful peacocks. There were flame-like firebirds. This place was simply like a fairyland. Moreover, many of them were towering trees. There were even some ancient trees that dozens of people could not wrap their arms around. The vines wrapped around the ancient trees were as thick as buckets, like horned dragons, full of a strong aura. These ancient trees would not grow without tens of thousands of years. In the jungle there were many fierce beasts' auras, each of which was extremely terrifying. Some auras were comparable to Shangguan Fenglan. There were even auras stronger than Shangguan Fenglan. It was hard to imagine how terrifying the fierce beasts here were. In addition, the essence qi here was also extremely rich. Everyone felt as if they were in the middle of an ocean of essence qi. They did not need to absorb it, and it flowed into their bodies through the pores of their bodies. Could be said that cultivating here for a day was comparable to cultivating outside for several days. No wonder the people of the North region desperately wanted to enter the Nine Heavens Palace. Not only were there endless resources here, but the cultivation environment was also far better than the outside. How is the Nine Heavens Palace? A chuckle sounded from the back. Everyone turned their heads and saw Shangguan Fenglan standing at the back, looking at everyone with a smile. "Greetings, Palace Master." Everyone bowed. "When I first entered the Nine Heavens Palace, I was deeply shocked like all of you. Rich essence qi, rich resources, powerful fierce beasts. All of these were things that I had never even dreamed of before. At that time I secretly swore that I would not waste such a good cultivation environment, and I must work hard. Finally, one day, I sat on the throne of the Law Enforcement Palace Master. I'm not saying this to show off anything, but to let you know to cherish this opportunity. Shangguan Fenglan smiled. We will remember the palace master's teachings. Everyone bowed in response, and their fighting spirit was high in their hearts. All right then. Feng Wenhai, take care of them well. After Shangguan Fenglan finished speaking, she rode the wind and disappeared into the depths of the mountain. Elder Feng, what kind of place is this? Someone asked curiously. The Nine Heavens Palace is an island floating in the sky. Although it's just an island, it's very big. Most of you are perfection war gods. With your speed, it'll take you at least 2 days to fly to the end of the island. Feng Wenhai said. It's actually an island? Everyone was dumbfounded. The most ridiculous thing was that it would take them 2 days to fly to the end. How big is this place? Qin Feiyang and the others were also shocked. If a perfect stage battle god needed 2 days, wouldn't it take even longer for them, who had just become battle gods and initial stage battle gods? This place was several times bigger than the Great Qin Empire and the Forgotten Continent combined. You're already surprised? The real surprise is yet to come. You can slowly understand the specific situation. Now I'll bring you to the cave. Follow me. Feng Wenhai rose into the air and flew towards the mountain. The others quickly followed. What's the use of this altar? After Qin Feiyang flew into the sky, he looked down at the altar in the middle of the square suspiciously. I heard that this altar can directly teleport you to the Eastern Tomb, Western Desert, and Southern Wasteland. Hui said in a low voice. What? Qin Feiyang was stunned and said in surprise. It can teleport you so far? It's said that not only in the Northern Domain, but also in the Eastern Tomb, Western Desert, and Southern Wasteland. After all, the 4 domains are too far apart and you have to pass through various dangerous forbidden areas. So, with these 4 altars, it'll be much more convenient no matter what you do. Hui said with a smile. That's true. Qin Feiyang nodded and said. In other words, the 4 domains often interact with each other. Normal people definitely don't. Even the disciples of the Nine Heavens Palace are not allowed to enter the Eastern Tomb, Western Desert, and Southern Wasteland without permission from the higher-ups. The same goes for the Eastern Tomb, Western Desert, and Southern Wasteland. So, only the leaders of the 4 domains often interact with each other. Hui said. Qin Feiyang nodded in realization. We're here. Suddenly, Feng Wenhai's voice sounded. So fast? Qin Feiyang was slightly stunned. It seemed that only a few dozen breaths had passed. Looking up, he saw a towering mountain peak in front of him. Each mountain peak was at least 1,000 feet high and covered with verdant vegetation. At a glance, it was densely packed, but arranged very neatly. And on the cliff, there was a stone door at regular intervals. Some stone doors were closed. Some stone doors were wide open. And that was the cave. Chapter 1989. Where is Changli? Just as everyone was curiously sizing up the cave, Feng Wenhai shouted loudly. Whoosh! Not long after, accompanied by the sound of something breaking through the air, a black-clothed brawny man teleported over and landed in front of Feng Wenhai. The black-clothed brawny man cupped his hands and smiled. Brother Feng. Feng Wenhai nodded and smiled, and shouted without turning his head. Outer sect disciples, step out. More than 200 people immediately stepped out. Qin Feiyang, Qin Rushuang, Fire Lotus, and Hui were also among them. The one standing in front of you is called Changli, an outer sect elder. From now on, he will be responsible for everything you do. You must respect him more than your parents. Feng Wenhai said. Greetings, Elder Chang. Everyone bowed and saluted. Changli nodded and looked at Feng Wenhai with a smile. Brother Feng, your words are a bit exaggerated. Finished. He then swept his gaze over Qin Feiyang and the others and said, I am a very casual person. As long as you don't cause trouble in the future and follow the rules, disciple will remember. Everyone bowed and replied. They thought to themselves that this elder looked quite easygoing, unlike Feng Wenhai, who was overbearing. Feng Wenhai glanced at Qin Feiyang and the other 3, his eyes shining, and laughed. Brother Cheng, let's talk somewhere else. All right. Changli nodded. The 2 of them walked to a distance and whispered to each other. Who knew what they were talking about? Hui sent a sound transmission. Brother Jiang. Guess what this Feng Wenhai is talking about? It's definitely nothing good. Qin Feiyang said indifferently. Hui was slightly startled and frowned. Why do I feel that you're not worried at all? Worried? There's no need for that. Anyway, if it's a blessing, it's not a disaster. If it's a disaster, it can't be avoided. Qin Feiyang secretly said. Hui was stunned. He shook his head and laughed. To be honest, I really admire your mentality. I also admire you. Qin Feiyang smiled indifferently. Me? Hui was at a loss. What was there to admire about him? Qin Feiyang did not speak again. There were some things that only needed to be clear in his heart. Although Hui appeared to be a coward, if one were to carefully observe him, they would discover that he was not afraid at all. In other words, the so-called cowardice was completely an act. Qin Feiyang, the Feng family definitely won't take this lying down. Also, Hui isn't someone to be trifled with either. You have to be careful. Mu Tianyang's voice suddenly rang in Qin Feiyang's mind. Qin Feiyang cast a glance toward Mu Tianyang and said inwardly, if anything happens to me, isn't that what you want to see? Good intentions really don't pay off. I'm just concerned about you. Even though we don't have a good relationship, we're both from Great Qin. Mu Tianyang transmitted his voice. You care about me? You should be more concerned about yourself. I'm guessing that Feng Wenhai will talk to you soon. Qin Feiyang snickered. You're really a bastard. Mu Tianyang cursed inwardly. This guy was indeed scheming against them. Qin Feiyang chuckled and transmitted his voice. Actually, you don't have to be so angry. It's your blessing to be tied to me. Blessing? Mu Tianyang's anger suddenly flared up and he said angrily, then shouldn't I thank you? No need to thank me. As long as you don't stab me in the back in the future. Qin Feiyang snickered inwardly. You're really shameless. Mu Tianyang glared fiercely at Qin Feiyang. This time, Feng Wenhai and Changli walked side by side. Inner disciples, follow me. Feng Wenhai walked over, and without saying anything, he turned around and headed deeper into the forest. Dozens of people immediately followed him. Qin Feiyang, don't play tricks in the future. If you really annoy me, I'll die with you. Mu Tianyang secretly snorted and quickly left with Mu Qing and Guosweki. Qin Feiyang looked up at Mu Tianyang's back and muttered secretly, are you willing to die with me? You guys come with me too. Changli glanced at the crowd and said with a smile. He also turned and flew toward a giant peak below. The crowd quickly followed. There are a total of 10,000 sword peaks in our outer gate, which are the ones in front of you. And each sword peak has 1,000 cave residences. In other words, our outer gate can accommodate a total of 10 million people. Changli explained as he flew. What? 10 million people? Everyone was shocked. Even Qin Feiyang was extremely shocked. 10 million, what kind of concept was that? Some small countries didn't have that many people in the whole country. The most important thing was, anyone who entered Jotian Palace must be a war god. And at the very least a perfect war god. In other words, just an outer gate there were 10 million war gods. This was unbelievable. If the outer gate was so terrifying, then what about the inner gate? They didn't even dare to think about it. Changli smiled and said, of course, although there are 10 million cave residences, they have never been full. Someone asked curiously, then how many disciples do we have in the outer gate? Changli said, around 8 million. 8 million. Everyone sucked in a breath of air. Even if there wasn't 10 million, 8 million was enough to shock everyone. Of these 8 million people, 99% of them are at the perfection or perfection war god level. The remaining 1% are all advanced stage war gods. As for initial stage, Jotian Palace doesn't have any. However, you must not underestimate that 1%. They can rely on this cultivation to pass the exam and enter Jotian Palace. They are not ordinary people. Changli smiled. Hearing this, everyone couldn't help but look at Qin Feiyang and the others. Weren't they just a few exceptions? Hui grinned, don't look at us like that. Okay? We'll be shy. Shy? Everyone was speechless and rolled their eyes. While they were talking, Changli brought a group of people and stopped in front of a sword peak in the north. There's only one person on this sword peak right now. You guys can stay here. As for the cave residences, they're all the same size. There's no difference. You guys can distribute them yourselves. After settling down, go to the number 1 sword peak to find me and receive your clothes and identity badge. Cheng-Li turned around and looked at everyone, smiling. Yes. Everyone nodded respectfully. Alright, you guys go ahead. After Cheng-Li finished speaking, he flashed and disappeared without a trace. This is our cave residence. I never dreamed that I would actually be able to enter Jiutian Palace. When I walk out in the future, who would dare to be impudent in front of me? Everyone looked at the sword peak. Some were filled with emotions, while others were in high spirits. In short, everyone's face was filled with bright smiles. However, Qin Feiyong frowned. Brother, what are you thinking about? Fire Lotus asked in a low voice. I thought that this Cheng-Li would make things difficult for us, but I didn't expect that he didn't do anything. Could it be that I'm thinking too much, and Feng Wenhai didn't instigate him at all? Or is he an upright person and wasn't bribed by Feng Wenhai? Qin Feiyong muttered. Since we're here, let's take it easy. What's the point of thinking so much? Huai smiled and raised his head to look at the cave residence. On the stone door of each cave residence, there was a number. From 1 to 1,000. Someone suddenly said, Elder Cheng, let us distribute the cave residence by ourselves. How do we do it? Although there's no difference between these 1,000 cave residences, these numbers represent strength. What do you mean by that? It's very simple. From number 1 to 1,000 cave residences from top to bottom, the person with the strongest cultivation will choose the cave residence at the top. And those with weak cultivation will naturally choose the cave residence at the bottom. The group of people discussed animatedly. Huai glanced at the group of people with a hint of ridicule in his eyes. He suddenly said, I object. Everyone was stunned and turned to look at Huai. Why should we look at cultivation? If we want to look at it, we have to look at strength. Huai said. Strength. Hearing this, everyone's pupils shrank and couldn't help but look at Qin Feiyong, who was standing next to Huai. In terms of strength, this person was definitely number 1. Wait. Although this Zhang Haoyan is famous, we haven't really seen him fight. That's right. Even at the mountain peak, he only released a murderous aura. Although his murderous aura is terrifying, it doesn't mean that he has strength. Everyone secretly discussed. Indeed. After Qin Feiyong entered Sky Dragon City, he basically didn't make a move. The only times he did was when he killed the 2 black-clothed men, fought with Black Dragon and Ye Yun's group. But very few people knew about these things. As for killing the black-clothed men, only people like Gong Zifeng and Gu Yong knew. As for fighting Black Dragon, only Huai secretly saw it. As for killing Ye Yun's group, only Fire Lotus and the upper echelons of Nine Heavens Palace knew. And these people in front of him knew nothing. Zhang Haoyan, I want to challenge you. Whoever wins, the number 1 cave mansion will belong to him. One of the black-clothed youths gritted his teeth and walked out of the crowd, looking at Zhang Haoyan. Challenge. Qin Feiyong was stunned. Although your reputation is great, we haven't seen your strength with our own eyes. If you really have strength, then please show it and let us be convinced. The black-clothed youth shouted. Yes. We've just arrived at Nine Heavens Palace and will definitely be bullied by other disciples. So we have to unite? Since we have to unite, then there has to be someone to lead us. And this person has to be the strongest among us. Please show us your strength. Let us see if you're the real deal, or if you don't live up to your reputation. Do you have the qualifications to make us listen to your orders? The others also shouted. Qin Feiyong was stunned as he looked at the group of people who were in high spirits. Did he say that he wanted to lead everyone? And challenge him? Don't be so childish, okay? He entered Nine Heavens Palace purely to investigate the whereabouts of his ancestors. He didn't care about anything else. I don't care what you want. I won't accept your challenge as long as you don't come and bother me, Qin Feiyong said indifferently and walked towards cave mansion number 1000. In any case, there was no difference between the Immortals' cave and where one lived was the same. Why should they fight over it? Boring. Zhang Haoyan, what do you mean by this? Didn't you hear that we won't be bullied only if we unite? You don't even dare to accept my challenge? Is your reputation really undeserved? The black-clothed youth said angrily. Chapter 1990. Qin Feiyong raised his eyebrows and turned to the young man in black. So we won't be bullied if we're united? Of course. The young man in black nodded. I didn't expect you to be so naive even though you're at the perfection battle god realm. Elder Chang said before that there are more than 8 million disciples in the outer sect. Just like you, they all relied on their own abilities to enter the Nine Heavens Palace. I'd like to ask, which one of them is ordinary? If they really come to bully you, do you think you'll be able to fight them? So I'd like to advise you to stop wasting your time. Work hard on your cultivation and increase your strength. That's the right way to go. As for me, just think of me as someone with an undeserved reputation. After saying that, Qin Feiyong stepped forward and landed in front of the cave dwelling. He walked in without looking back. Qin Rushuang and Fire Lotus followed him and left. Hui shook his head in disappointment. Originally he wanted Qin Feiyong to show off his skills. However, in the end, Qin Feiyong left without saying a word. In the crowd, Gao Shui glanced at Qin Feiyong's back, then looked at the 6 young men beside her and asked, "What should we do?" Zhang Haotian is right. Wasting your time is useless. Besides, we have Gongzifeng to back us up. We don't have to worry about anyone bullying us. Let's just find a cave dwelling. One of the young men said. The other 4 nodded. Seeing Qin Feiyong and his group entering the cave dwelling with Gao Shui's group, the young man in black and his group were stunned. What should we do? Are we still going to fight for first place? Fight, we have to decide who's better. As for Zhang Haotian and his group, we don't have to worry about them. After all, there are always a few people who don't fit in. That's right. If they encounter any trouble in the future, don't expect us to help them. The group of people was furious. Qin Feiyong chose cave dwelling number 1000. Qin Rushuang, Fire Lotus, and Hui chose abodes number 999, 998, and 997 respectively. Gao Shui and the 5 young men did not show off in the slightest. They chose caves 996 to 991. Inside the 1000th cave abode, Qin Feiyong stood in the middle of the cave and looked around. This cave abode was quite big. It was squarish and was about 200 to 300 feet wide. But it was very simple. Other than a shabby futon on the ground, there was nothing else. But there was one thing that Qin Feiyong was quite satisfied with. The cave abode was very clean and not damp. To him, the cave abode was not important at all. That was because he had been cultivating in the castle the whole time. Rumble. Outside, the sound of battle suddenly rang out. Qin Feiyong ignored him. He stood in place and lowered his head, muttering to himself. Soon, the 2 women walked over hand in hand. They were Qin Rushuang and Fire Lotus. Seeing Qin Feiyong lowering his head and pondering, a trace of suspicion appeared in their eyes, but they didn't say anything to disturb him. A moment later, Qin Feiyong heaved a sigh of relief. When he saw Qin Rushuang and Fire Lotus behind him, he asked in surprise, "When did you guys arrive?" Qin Rushuang was speechless. "You didn't even know that we came in. What are you thinking about? Why are you so engrossed?" Qin Feiyong said, "I was wondering if Empyrean Palace has a library or something like that." Library? Qin Rushuang was stunned. Regardless of the relationship between the ancestor and Empyrean Palace, there's no mistake that he once entered Empyrean Palace. Perhaps his past deeds might be recorded in some historical books. Qin Feiyong pondered. Library, Qin Rushuang murmured. Qin Feiyong looked outside the cave abode and asked, "Are they still fighting outside?" "Yes. By the looks of it, they won't stop until there's a winner." Fire Lotus chuckled. "A bunch of idiots. They're just wasting time." Qin Feiyong sneered and looked at the 2 of them. "Did you guys notice something that Elder Chung said?" "What?" The 2 of them were suspicious. "He said that there's a person on this sword peak." Qin Feiyong's eyes flickered. "I think he did say that." The 2 of them recalled carefully and nodded. Qin Feiyong said, "I'm curious about a person who lives alone on this sword peak." "What's there to be curious about?" Fire Lotus was speechless. "Girl, you don't understand. People like him are either extremely strong or extremely weak. There's a difference between the 2. The former is someone who disdains to live on the same sword peak as others. In other words, he's an arrogant and solitary person. The latter is someone who is ostracized by others. In that case, he must be someone who's timid, weak, and has an inferiority complex. Qin Feiyang chuckled. Sounds like it does make some sense. Fire Lotus mumbled. In your eyes, which one of Qin Daige's words makes sense? Qin Rushuang teased. Fire Lotus was stunned and her cheeks flushed red. She hurriedly explained, Sister Rushuang, don't misunderstand. I'm just treating Qin Daige like an older brother. I don't mean anything else. Did I say anything? I don't think so. You're the one who thought about it. Fire Lotus, we're all good sisters. Tell me the truth. Don't tell me you've really fallen for this guy? Qin Rushuang walked up and chuckled. Sister Rushuang, I really didn't. In my eyes, he's like an older brother. Fire Lotus said hurriedly. Look at how anxious you are. I'm just joking. However, if you really like him, don't hide it. After all, the Qin family still needs him to carry on the family line. One mermaid princess is not enough. Qin Rushuang snickered. Fire Lotus was a little helpless. I say, can you stop spouting nonsense? Carry on the family line? You can do it too. Qin Feiyang said unhappily. Can I do the same? Qin Rushuang said. What's the difference? You're the ancestor's daughter. By right, carrying on the family line is your responsibility. Qin Feiyang said. I'm a woman. There's a saying that doesn't work that way. A married daughter is like water that has been poured out. So kid, you can't escape the task of carrying on the family line. Qin Rushuang said lightly. You're getting more and more excited. Qin Feiyang was speechless. Buzz. At this moment, Qin Feiyang's image crystal sounded. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed. With a wave of his hand, the door of the cave dwelling closed and he took out the image crystal. Immediately, a purple-robed young man appeared. It was Gongzi Feng. As soon as Gongzi Feng saw Qin Feiyang, he cupped his hands and smiled. Brother Jiang, congratulations. What are you congratulating me for? Qin Feiyang looked at him in confusion. Congratulations on entering the 9th Heaven Palace. Gao Xiaolong and I have already discussed. We'll look for you tonight and have a few drinks. Gongzi Feng smiled. Is there a need for that? Qin Feiyang shook his head and laughed. Of course there is. This time, not only did you successfully enter the 9th Heaven Palace, but you also fought back against my father and the rest. I feel so good. Gongzi Feng laughed. Qin Feiyang couldn't help but laugh. If your father hears you, he'll definitely scold you for being a white-eyed wolf. Tisk, do you think I care? Gongzi Feng smiled disdainfully. All right. Don't come tonight in case someone sees you. As for Gao Xiaolong, you can go visit his sister. Tell me about Qin Badian. Did you get anything in the past few days? Qin Feiyang asked. No. I've asked many people, but they don't know the details. Gongzi Feng shook his head. Qin Feiyang asked, what about your father, grandfather, elder brother, and elder sister? I've asked my grandfather. Of course, I just mentioned it casually. After all, I didn't dare to ask about it openly. But my grandfather's attitude surprised me. Gongzi Feng frowned. Qin Feiyang and Qin Rushuang looked at each other and asked, what's his attitude? He seemed a little angry and regretful. He even scolded me and warned me not to mention the name Qin Badian again. Gongzi Feng said. Angry? Regretful? Qin Feiyang and Qin Rushuang both frowned. What was the meaning of this? Brother Jiang, I don't think there's any hope for this. It's my fault for being useless. If it were my elder brother and elder sister, my grandfather and the others might have revealed a thing or two. Gongzi Feng blamed himself. It can't be helped. They don't like you. Oh right. What's wrong with your elder brother recently? Why isn't there any movement? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. After the incident at the treasure pavilion, he was punished by my grandfather to face the wall. I reckon that he won't be jumping around for a long time in the future. Gongzi Feng said with a smile, gloating. Don't laugh so happily. If he doesn't come out, I won't have a chance to deal with him. Qin Feiyang said. That's true. Gongzi Feng frowned and asked, should I go to my grandfather and plead for him? That won't be necessary. Moreover, it'll only be disadvantageous for you if you suddenly plead for Feng Zijuan, because your grandfather will be surprised. Why are you suddenly so kind? He might keep an eye on you then. You just have to do one thing. Tell Feng Zijuan that I've entered the Empyrean Palace, and he won't be able to resist taking action against me. Whether it's him or his lackeys, as long as someone comes, I'll have a way to fight back. Qin Feiyong said with a smile. Gong Zifeng said with admiration, Brother Jiang, you're really far-sighted. I'll listen to you. Qin Feiyong smiled and said, Besides, is there a library in the Empyrean Palace? Library? Gong Zifeng was stunned. Qin Feiyong added, A place like the library is fine too. There's no such place. Gong Zifeng shook his head. No. The Empyrean Palace has existed for so many years. There must be some historical records. Where are they? Qin Feiyong frowned. So, what you want is these historical records. Then why don't you just say the historical records? Why the library? There are indeed such historical records. Once, I overheard my father and grandfather talking about this in private. All the historical records of the Empyrean Palace from ancient times to the present seem to be in the Vice Palace Master's study. Gong Zifeng said. Chapter 1991. Vice Palace Master? Qin Feiyong frowned. Although he had never seen this person before, as the second in command of Nine Heavens Palace, he must be very strong. Gong Zifeng shook his head. Our Vice Palace Master is a little mysterious. Mysterious? Qin Feiyong was taken aback and asked suspiciously, What do you mean? It means that he's elusive. The entire Nine Heavens Palace? That's not right. It should be said that in the entire northern region, only a handful of people have seen the Vice Palace Master. Gong Zifeng said. So mysterious? Qin Feiyong was surprised and asked, You haven't seen him before? Not just me, other than the disciples on the heaven list, no one else has seen him before. Even the disciples on the earth list don't know what he looks like. Actually, it makes sense. Such a big figure, how can we easily see him? Gong Zifeng shook his head. What about the Palace Master of Nine Heavens Palace? Qin Feiyong asked. Palace Master? Someone stronger than the Vice Palace Master must be even more mysterious. I've heard of the Vice Palace Master. But this Lord Palace Master, I've never heard anyone mention him since I entered Nine Heavens Palace. I'm wondering if there's such a person. Gong Zifeng smiled bitterly. Sure enough, each one is more mysterious than the other. Qin Feiyong muttered and asked, Who's the one in charge? Usually it's the Palace Masters. Gong Zifeng said. Qin Feiyong frowned, including your grandfather? Gong Zifeng nodded. Qin Feiyong said in realization, So the Palace Masters are the ones in charge. No wonder your grandfather dared to be so arrogant. Not all of them. The one in charge is actually the Grand Elder. Our Nine Heavens Palace has a total of 10 Grand Elders. They are the strongest existences in our Nine Heavens Palace apart from the Palace Master and Vice Palace Master. But the other 9 Grand Elders are immersed in cultivation and never care about worldly affairs. The 2 Palace Masters have never shown themselves either. So, the person who truly controls the Nine Heavens Palace is actually the First Elder. Although the various Palace Masters possess real power, they do not dare to act rashly before the First Elder. Gong Zifeng said. Great Elder. Qin Feiyong's eyes flickered. After pondering for a moment, he said, There's something I need you to investigate. What is it? Gong Zifeng was suspicious. Qin Feiyong said, The matter of me slandering the Nine Heavens Palace, I'm sure you already know about it. Yes. There's no need to doubt this. Grandfather and father must be behind this. Gong Zifeng said. I know it's them, but I have no proof. Qin Feiyong said. You want evidence? Gong Zifeng asked. Yes. It would be best if we could find those who were ordered to spread the rumors, because only by catching them can we have solid evidence. Qin Feiyong said in a deep voice. Although Feng Yuan and Feng Wenhai were the masterminds behind the scenes, their positions in Nine Heavens Palace were too high. If they directly started with them, they might fall into their trap. Therefore, they had to start with the people below them. Hearing this, Gong Zifeng frowned. He lowered his head and fell into deep thought. After a while, he raised his head and looked at Qin Feiyong. He said, I understand what you mean. However, the people who spread the rumors are most definitely the trusted aides of my grandfather and the others. As for those trusted aides, I know absolutely nothing about them. I fear that it will be a bit difficult to investigate them. Qin Feiyong said. No matter how difficult it is, we have to find them. All right. I'll try my best. Gong Zifeng nodded. I believe in my eyesight. I won't misjudge them. Qin Feiyong smiled. Haha. Gong Zifeng laughed and said, all right, I'll go arrange it now. You have to be careful on your side, especially Cheng Li. He's a treacherous person who doesn't know what he looks like. Is that so? Qin Feiyong was surprised. When father first brought me to Nine Heavens Palace, I stayed in the outer sect for a while, so I know his character very well. Gong Zifeng said. Got it. Qin Feiyong nodded. Gong Zifeng's virtual image disappeared immediately. Qin Feiyong put away the image crystal and looked at Qin Rushuang and Fire Lotus with a smile. It seems that we've been fooled by Cheng Li's appearance. Humph. He better not get in the way. Qin Rushuang said coldly. Cheng Li is nothing to worry about. Even if he really wants to deal with us, we don't have to pay attention to him. The most important thing now is to find a way to sneak into the Vice Palace Master's study. Qin Feiyong smiled. Fire Lotus asked Qin Dage, why don't you let Gong Zifeng go? Girl, that's the Vice Palace Master's study. Even his grandfather, Feng Yuan, may not be able to get in, let alone a mere Gong Zifeng. It's already very good of him to tell us where the historical records are hidden. Qin Feiyong shook his head. Fire Lotus said worriedly. But the Vice Palace Master's study must be a dragon's den. Qin Feiyong clenched his hands and said with a sharp look in his eyes, even if it's a dragon's den or a tiger's den, we have to go. Rumble. The battle outside was getting more and more intense. The entire Sword Peak began to tremble slowly. Damn it, are you done? All of a sudden, an impatient cold voice sounded from the cave abode at the top of the Sword Peak. There was a trace of hostility in the voice. The more than 200 people outside immediately looked up and found that the voice came from cave abode number 1. There was someone in cave abode number 1? Wait. Elder Cheng seemed to have said that there was originally a person on this Sword Peak. Now that you mention it, it seems that Elder Cheng really did say that. The black-clothed young man had already landed outside cave abode number 1, and was about to enter. Dong! The footsteps suddenly became extremely loud, as if a giant beast was walking. The ground was shaking. At the same time, the invisible sense of oppression also soared in an instant. The black-clothed young man outside the cave abode suddenly stiffened, and his raised foot could not step into the cave abode. What's going on? The crowd below was in an uproar. This, Qin Feiyong was shocked. Just a sense of oppression was able to block the black-clothed young man outside? One must know. The black-clothed young man's cultivation was not simple. He was a perfect realm war god. Boom! The black-clothed young man was of course unwilling to give up. He immediately released his divine power to fight against the invisible pressure. Dong! The footsteps became more and more deafening. The invisible sense of oppression was still increasing, like a tide, colliding with the black-clothed young man's divine power. You dare to be arrogant with this little ability? About 10 breaths later, the voice finally sounded, containing a shocking amount of hostility. Following closely, the sound of his footsteps was like thunder, deafening. Everything within a radius of tens of thousands of miles was trembling. The invisible sense of oppression instantly shattered the black-clothed young man's divine power and drowned him. Plop! The black-clothed young man's legs turned to jelly and he fell to the ground. Large beads of sweat appeared on his forehead. He was shocked. This time he had really kicked an iron plate. How could this be? The people below looked at the black-clothed young man, and their hearts were in a perilous situation. Previously, they had fought with the black-clothed young man in order to fight for first place, so they knew how powerful he was. But now he was kneeling down. The most unbelievable thing was that it was only the sound of footsteps. Boom! Suddenly, the invisible sense of oppression descended from the sky and drowned everyone here, including Qin Feiyong and the others. Plop! One by one they knelt down. Gao Xiaowei and the other 5 young men were not spared either. Everyone's face was filled with fear. What kind of terrifying existence was this? Chapter 1992. However, in the midst of their shock, someone noticed the situation of Qin Feiyang and the others and immediately exclaimed, "How is this possible?" Hearing the exclamation, everyone looked over. Their eyes widened in anger and disbelief. The four of them stood on the spot as if nothing had happened. Their bodies did not even tremble. How did they do it? One should know. Even a perfect war god would not be able to withstand this pressure. However, a beginner war god, two beginner war gods, and one advanced war god could stand there steadily. What was going on? Everyone's heart was filled with incredulity. But at the same time, Qin Feiyang's expression was also filled with astonishment. However, this astonishment did not come from the mysterious expert in cave abode number 1. It came from Huai Fire Lotus. He had opened the door of potential. This little bit of pressure naturally had no effect on him. As for Qin Rushuang, before she entered the ancient castle to comprehend the ultimacy of becoming a god, she had also opened all the doors of potential with the help of Yu Huang, Willow Tree, and the others. At that time, Gong Sunbei was also there. After all, Gong Sunbei had always been the person Qin Feiyang wanted the most. Therefore, he was not stingy with this person. However, Huai and Fire Lotus could also ignore this pressure. This was somewhat strange. Could it be that the two of them had also opened the door of potential? But that was not right. When Fire Lotus had just condensed her body, she was not wearing anything. Qin Feiyang had seen her from head to toe. Of course, he did not see the potential mark on Fire Lotus's chest. This proved that Fire Lotus did not open the door of potential. If she did not open the door of potential, then why could she ignore this pressure? The more Qin Feiyang thought about it, the more puzzled he became. He could not help but ask, "Girl, don't you feel the pressure?" "Yes. But for some reason, this pressure does not seem to have any effect on me," Fire Lotus thought to herself. She was also puzzled. It doesn't work. The corner of Qin Feiyang's mouth twitched. Why was that? Huai could also use other reasons to explain himself. For example, he was hiding his cultivation, or he had some strange treasure on him. However, he was very clear about the Fire Lotus's situation. His cultivation was only at the initial stage of the War God stage, and he didn't have any rare treasures on him. Wait a minute. Could it be related to her undead body? Now, Qin Feiyang could only make such a guess. This was because the only difference between the Fire Lotus and the others was that she was an undead. Inside the number 1 cave residence, there was also a surprised voice. Obviously, this mysterious expert also noticed the situation of Qin Feiyang and the other three. Dong! Following closely, the footsteps became louder and louder. The pressure also became more and more terrifying. Not only were the sword peaks and the ground shaking, but the other sword peaks were also shaking violently. It was obvious. This mysterious expert wanted to compete with Qin Feiyang and the other three. However, Qin Feiyang and the other three remained indifferent and as steady as Mount Tai. On the contrary, the disciples of the other sword peaks roared with dissatisfaction. "Damn lunatic, what are you doing? Can't you just stop and let us have a few days of peace? Fortunately, it's you. If it were someone else, they would have been kicked out of the 9th Heaven Palace long ago." Angry shouts came one after another. Qin Feiyang and the other three looked at each other. What was the background of the person in the number 1 cave residence? How could he be called a lunatic? And listening to these words, it was not difficult to judge that this person must be a lawless person who often caused trouble. This revealed an important piece of information. This person must have a certain identity. Otherwise, the 9th Heaven Palace would not allow him to cause trouble like this. And at the number 1 sword peak, Changli stood at the edge of the cliff and looked at Qin Feiyang's direction. The corners of his mouth curved into a meaningful smile. A lunatic. An arrogant person. When these two people met, there would definitely be friction. Zhang Haoyan, don't blame me. This is all Feng Wenhai's arrangement. If you die in the hands of a lunatic, blame Feng Wenhai. Murmuring, Changli turned around and strode away. There was an ancient hall in front of him. Above the door, there were a few bold words engraved. Outer Deacon Hall. Interesting. Seeing that Qin Feiyang and the other three had not knelt down, a mocking voice once again sounded from the number 1 cave residence. "I don't think it's that interesting. It's purely a senseless act." Qin Feiyong looked at the number 1 cave residence and said indifferently, "A senseless act. Haha. Kid, you're crazy. If that's the case, then I'll show you a less senseless act." The voice fell. The sound of footsteps dissipated and was replaced by a terrifying murderous aura, roaring out from the number 1 cave residence. Murderous aura? Qin Feiyong was taken aback, and then the corner of his mouth lifted slightly. Competing with him in murderous aura? Wasn't this looking for a beating? Boom! That moment, Qin Feiyong's body shook, and a monstrous murderous aura rushed out from his body. Accompanied by a loud bang, the two murderous auras collided. There was no suspense. Qin Feiyong obtained victory by crushing his opponent as easily as crushing rotten wood. He didn't dare to say anything else. But in terms of murderous aura, if he said that he was second, no one would dare to say that he was first. This was confidence. The people in the number 1 cave residence were incomparably surprised. What kind of person had come this time? The murderous aura that erupted was actually more terrifying than his? No. The word terrifying could no longer be used to describe it. This level of murderous aura was even dozens or hundreds of times more than his. This is the act you want to perform? It's still so boring. Qin Feiyong said with a faint smile, his words full of provocation. Inside the number 1 cave residence, there was dead silence. Boom! All of a sudden, an expanse of blood-red light gushed out and pounced towards Qin Feiyong like a tide. The bloody light not only had a monstrous murderous aura, but also carried a terrifying divine power. Fire Lotus's eyes trembled, secretly saying, "Qin Dage, be careful, this is a divine art." Qin Feiyong waved his hand and smiled. Looking at the number 1 cave residence, he said indifferently, "I'll return it to you." Boom! As soon as his words fell, he raised his head and slapped his palm. Golden light burst out from his palm, and the bloody light suddenly turned in the air and rushed into the cave residence. In the cave residence, there was a muffled groan immediately. Obviously, the people in the cave residence were seriously injured. It's getting more and more interesting. However, not only was this person not angry, his mood was even higher. Divine power was like a waterfall rolling out. "Brother Jiang, this person should be a battle maniac. If this continues, I guess there will be no end to it." Hua Yi frowned. "Battle maniac," Qin Feiyong murmured, his eyes flashing, and said with a smile, "This kind of person to others may be a lunatic, but I like it very much." "You still like it?" Hua Yi was speechless. The so-called battle maniac was someone who wanted to fight with anyone he saw, and he would never give up until the outcome was decided. Being together with this kind of person would cause trouble at any time and place. Who would like such a person? But this guy in front of him seemed to have met a confidant. Sure enough, each and every one of them was a weirdo. "Actually, my brother also has the potential to be a battle maniac." Fire Lotus covered her mouth and laughed. "Makes sense." Hua Yi nodded. Qin Feiyong was stunned, helplessly looked at Fire Lotus and said, "Girl, I don't have the potential in this area. Others say that only people who are like-minded will absorb each other. Since you're not a battle maniac, then why do you still like him?" Hua Yi was very puzzled. Qin Feiyong pondered for a while and sighed. "In a word, I'm tired of scheming against each other." "What the hell?" Hua Yi frowned. What did this have to do with scheming against each other? Battle maniacs, when encountering problems, basically rely on their fists to solve them. This kind of person, although sometimes difficult to deal with, is usually more straightforward and not scheming. So, when interacting with this kind of person, you don't have to be on guard at all times. Qin Feiyong smiled faintly. "I see." Fire Lotus nodded in realization and laughed. "Now that you've said it, it does make sense." "That's what I said. In your eyes, everything he says makes sense." Qin Rushwang teased. "Sister Rushwang." Fire Lotus pouted coquettishly and could not help but blush. However, under the cover of the mask, no one saw it. Qin Feiyong raised his head and looked at cave abode number 1, asking with a smile, "Sir, is there anything else interesting to watch?" There was a moment of silence in the cave abode before a voice sounded. "Kid, you're not the ordinary kind of crazy. Thank you for the compliment." Qin Feiyong smiled. "Tell me your name." Lunatic said. "Zhang Haotian." Qin Feiyong said. "Zhang Haotian, I also like people like you. but it's far from enough for me to approve of you. Lunatic said. Do I need your approval? Qin Feiyang asked in return. Haha, interesting, this is too interesting. Lunatic laughed endlessly, accompanied by the sound of something tearing through the air. A piece of paper flew out of the cave abode. Qin Feiyang grabbed it and lowered his head to take a look. A smile flashed across his face before he tore the paper into pieces and said with a smile, "Then I'll see you there." Haha, I'll see you there. Madman laughed and then went silent. Hui asked suspiciously, Brother Jiang, what do you mean? That's right, brother. You didn't even show us what was written on the paper before you tore it into pieces. Fire Lotus was also a little displeased. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and said, Let's go to Sword Peak number 1 to get our identity badge. After saying that, he turned around and took a step forward, stepping into the void and leaving. Qin Rushuang and the other two looked at each other with suspicion in their eyes. What were the two of them playing at? After Qin Feiyang and the other three left, the pressure also dissipated. The black-clothed youth and the others stood up and glanced at cave abode number 1 before looking at Qin Feiyang's back view with reverence in their eyes. This was a true expert. Unfortunately, this person was not willing to be with them. Otherwise, he would definitely be the king of this Sword Peak. I don't care what you want to do, as long as you don't disturb my cultivation. Otherwise, even if the heavens come down, they won't be able to save you. Lunatic's voice was heard with a terrifying murderous aura. Understood, understood. The black-clothed youth and the others shuddered and hurriedly nodded respectfully. However, why did those words sound so familiar? Wait a minute. It was Zhang Haoyan. Not long ago, Zhang Haoyan also said the same thing. I don't care what you want to do, as long as you don't disturb me. It seemed like the two of them had similar personalities. You're tuning into the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.